I kissed my boss, and it almost destroyed everything. That's what Ethan Cole would have said if anyone had asked. But nobody did. Because in the sterile, glass-walled world of Monroe and Associates, some mistakes don't get second chances. They get buried, ignored, erased by morning light and corporate silence. Except this one wouldn't stay buried. What started as one drunken moment at a company party became a choice that would test everything Ethan believed about integrity, fatherhood, and whether love could ever be worth the risk when a 5-year-old girl's stability hung in the balance. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. Ethan Cole stared at the screen of his laptop, the blue light washing over his tired features in the darkness of his small apartment. His daughter Mia had been asleep for hours, her soft breathing audible through the baby monitor on his desk, a device most parents abandoned by age 5, but Ethan couldn't bring himself to put away. Not yet. Not after everything. Subject: Monday morning. My office. 8 a.m. Sharp. From Rachel Monroe. No body text. No explanation. Just a summons that made his stomach drop like he'd missed a step in the dark. He knew what this was about. The company holiday party had been 8 hours ago. 8 hours since Rachel Monroe, his boss, the youngest CEO in the firm's 90-year history, the woman whose TED Talk on ethical leadership had 11 million views, had cornered him near the coat check with champagne on her breath and vulnerability in her eyes. 8 hours since she'd leaned in to kiss him. 8 hours since he'd stopped her with his hand gently against her shoulder and words he couldn't take back. If you were sober, I'd make the first move. Ethan closed the laptop and pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. What the hell had he been thinking? The party had started innocently enough. Monroe & Associates' annual holiday celebration was legendary in the industry, held at the Grandview Hotel's rooftop ballroom, with a view that made the city look like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Ethan had almost skipped it. Getting a babysitter on a Friday night was nearly impossible, and he'd used up most of his favors with Mrs. Chen next door just to handle the late work nights that seemed to multiply every week. But Rachel had specifically asked if he'd be there. Not ordered. Asked. I'd really appreciate having someone there I can actually talk to, she'd said 3 days earlier, catching him in the break room when nobody else was around. Her usual armor, the perfectly tailored suits, the cool professional distance, had softened just slightly. These things are performance art. It would be nice to have at least one real conversation. Ethan should have recognized the danger in that moment. Should have felt the shift. But he'd been so focused on not screwing up his second chance at a career that he'd missed all the signs that something was building between them. Something neither of them could afford. He'd found a babysitter, he'd gone to the party, and now everything was falling apart. The morning of the party had started the way every Saturday morning started, with Mia's small hand shaking his shoulder and her voice chirping, "Daddy, I'm hungry. Can we have pancakes?" Ethan had rolled over, squinting against the early light filtering through the thin curtains of their 2-bedroom apartment. Mia stood beside his bed in her favorite pajamas, the ones with the cartoon astronauts that were getting too small, but that she refused to give up, with her dark curls tangled from sleep and her mother's eyes looking at him with that particular blend of hope and mischief that made his chest ache. Pancakes, huh? He'd sat up, running a hand through his own disheveled hair. I suppose we could manage that. With chocolate chips? Don't push your luck, kiddo. Please? He'd caved immediately. He always did. 20 minutes later, they'd been at the kitchen counter together, Mia standing on her step stool, carefully dropping chocolate chips into the batter while Ethan heated the griddle. These moments were everything. After losing his wife 2 years ago, a brain aneurysm that gave them no warning, no chance to say goodbye, Ethan had learned that life could be measured in small perfections. Chocolate chip pancakes on Saturday mornings. The way Mia laughed when she got syrup on her nose. The trust in her eyes when she climbed into his lap with a scraped knee or a bad dream. He'd lost his job 6 months after Claire died. Grief had made him unreliable, unfocused. He'd burned through their savings during 8 months of unemployment, sending out hundreds of resumes while trying to keep Mia's world stable and normal and safe. The position at Monroe & Associates had been a miracle. executive assistant to the CEO, a role that paid well enough to rebuild their life and had reasonable hours that let him be present for Mia. He'd been hired 6 months ago, and he'd been desperate not to screw it up, but desperation apparently wasn't enough to keep him from making catastrophic mistakes. "Daddy?" Mia had asked that morning, dragging him back from his thoughts. "Why do you have to work tonight?" "It's not really work, sweetheart. It's a party for the company." "Will there be cake?" "Probably very fancy cake." "Can I come?" His heart had squeezed. "Not this time, kiddo. It's just for grown-ups. But Mrs. Chen is going to come stay with you, and you can watch a movie and have popcorn." Mia had considered this, her small face serious in a way that always reminded him painfully of Claire. "Will your boss be there? The pretty lady?" Ethan had paused, spatula in hand. "Miss Monroe?" "Yes, she'll be there." "Why?" "I liked her when she came to your work and I was there that time." That had been 2 months ago, when Mia's school had called with a fever, and Ethan had no choice but to bring her to the office for the last hour of the day. Rachel had found them in his cubicle, Mia coloring at his desk, while Ethan frantically tried to finish a presentation. Instead of the irritation he'd expected, Rachel had crouched down to Mia's level and asked about her drawing. They'd talked about space and stars and favorite colors for 10 minutes while Ethan watched in quiet amazement. Later, Rachel had authorized company childcare benefits he hadn't known existed. "She's very nice," Ethan had said carefully that Saturday morning. "Is she your friend?" "She's my boss, Mia." "But is she your friend?" Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. "It's complicated, sweetheart." Mia had nodded sagely, as if she understood completely. Then she'd stolen a chocolate chip directly from the bag and grinned at him with chocolate-stained teeth, and he'd laughed despite everything. If he'd known what would happen that night, he would have canceled. He would have stayed home with his daughter and her chocolate chip pancakes and never let the outside world touch them. But he hadn't known. So he'd gone. The party had been in full swing by the time Ethan arrived at 8:30. The rooftop ballroom glittered with lights and laughter, filled with the firm's 200 employees and their plus ones. Ethan had come alone. Dating was a foreign country he had no map for, and the thought of bringing someone to a work event made his skin crawl with anxiety. He'd spotted Rachel immediately. She was impossible to miss. At 32, Rachel Monroe commanded attention without trying. Tonight she wore a deep emerald dress that was professional enough for a company event, but striking enough to remind everyone that she was more than just a title. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing the elegant line of her neck. She was talking to the board chairman, her posture perfect, her smile controlled and precise. She looked untouchable. Ethan had grabbed a beer and found a spot near the windows, content to observe. He was good at being invisible at these things. The wallflower assistant who did his job well and went home to his kid. No drama, no complications. But Rachel had found him anyway. "Hiding already?" Her voice had cut through the ambient noise, warm with amusement. The party just started. He'd turned to find her beside him, 2 glasses of champagne in her hands. She'd offered him one. "I'm more of a beer guy, Dishai," he'd said, raising his bottle slightly. "I know, but humor me. It's good champagne, and I need someone to help me look appropriately festive." Her smile had been different than usual, less guarded, more genuine. "Plus, if I have to listen to one more person pitch me their pet project at a party, I'm going to start assigning weekend work as punishment." Despite himself, Ethan had laughed. He'd taken the champagne. That had been his first mistake. They'd talked for 20 minutes by the windows, watching the city lights spread out below them. The conversation had flowed easily, easier than it should have between a CEO and her assistant. They'd talked about the company's expansion into the European market, about a difficult client Rachel was managing, about the upcoming budget meetings that everyone was dreading. Normal work talk, except it hadn't felt normal. There had been something in the way Rachel looked at him, something in the small space between them that seemed charged with possibility. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel had said eventually, her second glass of champagne half empty. "And you can absolutely tell me it's none of my business." That sounds ominous. "Why did you take this job? You're overqualified to be an executive assistant. Your resume showed project management experience, strategic planning, a master's degree in business administration. You could have applied for a director-level position." Ethan had looked down at his champagne, watching the bubbles rise. This was the question he'd been dreading since his interview. I needed something stable, predictable hours, a position where I could focus on doing good work without the pressure of climbing a ladder. Because of Mia, his eyes had snapped to hers. How did you? You keep a photo of her on your desk. You leave at 5:30 every day without fail. You've never taken a business trip, never worked a weekend, and you turn down every after-hours optional event. Rachel's voice had been gentle, not accusatory. You're protecting something, someone. I respect that. The knot in Ethan's chest had loosened slightly. She's 5. She already lost her mother. I can't... He'd stopped, surprised by the emotion in his voice. She needs stability. She needs to know that when I say I'll be home for dinner, I'll be there. Rachel had been quiet for a moment. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. No. Rachel's hand had briefly touched his arm, a fleeting contact that somehow felt monumental. Ethan, I've watched you work for 6 months. You're brilliant. You're reliable. You make my job easier in 100 ways I didn't know it could be easier. And you do all of that while being completely present for your daughter. That's not luck. That's extraordinary. He should have made an excuse and walked away. He should have remembered that she was his boss, that there were 100 ethical and professional reasons why this conversation was dangerous. But her eyes had been so genuine, and he'd been lonely for so long, and for just a moment he'd let himself imagine what it might be like to be seen. Really seen. Not as the grieving widower, or the struggling single father, or the competent but unremarkable assistant, just as himself. Thank you, he'd said quietly. They'd stood there in silence, and Ethan had felt the moment stretch and deepen into something he couldn't name. Then someone had called Rachel's name, a board member who needed her attention, and she'd squeezed his arm once before walking away. Ethan had finished his champagne and seriously considered leaving, but he'd stayed. The night had continued. Ethan had made conversation with colleagues, had endured the awkward small talk that lubricated these events. He'd kept one eye on Rachel across the room, watching her navigate the social performance with practiced ease. Every smile calculated, every laugh perfectly timed. It was exhausting just to witness. Around 11 o'clock, things had started to get messy. The champagne flowed freely, voices got louder. Someone had convinced the DJ to play music from college parties, and a group of junior analysts had started an enthusiastic and deeply uncoordinated dance circle. The senior partners had retreated to the bar, red-faced and jovial, trading stories that got more exaggerated with each retelling. Ethan had been near the coat check preparing to leave when Rachel had appeared. She'd been drunk. Not falling down drunk, but past the point of her usual control. Her eyes had been bright, her movements slightly loose. She'd cornered him near the exit with a look he couldn't decipher. Leaving without saying goodbye? Her words had been crisp, but slightly too loud. It's late. I should get back to Mia. Mia. Always Mia. Rachel had smiled, but there was something raw underneath it. Do you ever do anything just for yourself? She's my daughter. She comes first. I know. It's one of the things Rachel had stopped, swaying slightly. Her hand had found his chest, ostensibly for balance. You're a good man, Ethan Cole. Rachel, you've had a lot to drink. Let me call you a car. I don't want a car. Her face had been very close to his now, her pupils dilated. I want to know something. What? If I kissed you right now, would you kiss me back? Ethan's heart had stopped. The noise of the party had faded into static. He'd been intensely aware of her hand on his chest, of the champagne on her breath, of the dangerous precipice they were standing on. Every rational part of his brain had screamed at him to step back, to laugh it off, to pretend this wasn't happening. But he'd been lonely for 2 years, and she'd been beautiful and brilliant and looking at him like he mattered. And for one terrible moment, he'd wanted to say yes. Instead, he'd put his hand gently on her shoulder, creating space between them. Rachel, you're drunk. So? Defiance and vulnerability had warred in her expression. So I'm not going to let you do something you'll regret. Who says I'd regret it? And that's when Ethan had made his second mistake. The one that would change everything. He'd looked her directly in the eyes and said, if you were sober, I'd make the first move. Rachel had frozen. The defiance had drained from her face, replaced by shock and something else, something that looked like hope, or fear, or both. Then someone had called her name from across the room, breaking the spell. Rachel had stepped back, her professional mask slamming back into place like a door. I need to. I know. Go. She'd walked away without looking back. Ethan had left the party 2 minutes later, his hands shaking so badly he could barely call a car. The weekend had been torture. Saturday and Sunday had crawled by in agonizing slowness. Ethan had gone through the motions with Mia. Playground visits, grocery shopping, bedtime stories. But his mind had been stuck in an endless loop of that moment. Rachel's face. His words. The catastrophic boundary he'd crossed with a single sentence. If you were sober, I'd make the first move. What the hell did that even mean? It was honest. God, it was honest. But it was also a confession of feelings he had no business having for his boss. Feelings that could destroy the stability he'd worked so hard to rebuild for Mia. He'd drafted his resignation letter 6 times. Each version had been slightly different, but they all said the same thing. I can no longer work in this capacity. Please accept my 2 weeks' notice. He'd deleted them all, because quitting would mean starting over. Again. It would mean financial uncertainty and new job searches, and explaining to Mia why they might have to move to a smaller apartment. It would mean admitting that he'd let his feelings compromise his judgment. But staying would mean facing Rachel on Monday morning with those words hanging between them like smoke. Sunday night, he'd tucked Mia into bed and read her favorite book, Goodnight Moon, for the 1,000th time. She'd fallen asleep with her hand curled around his fingers, her face peaceful and trusting. He'd sat there for a long time after she'd drifted off, watching her breathe. I'm sorry, baby girl, he'd whispered. Daddy might have really screwed this up. Then that email had arrived at 11:47 p.m., and Ethan had known his time was up. Monday morning came too quickly. Ethan had barely slept. He dropped Mia at school with an extra long hug that made her squirm and complain. Daddy, you're squishing me! And then he'd driven to the office with his stomach in knots. The Monroe and Associates building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the financial district. Ethan's usual routine involved grabbing coffee from the lobby cafe, riding the elevator to the 15th floor, and starting his day by reviewing Rachel's schedule and preparing her morning briefing. Today, he skipped the coffee. He went straight to the elevator. His hands were sweating as he reached the executive floor. The hallway to Rachel's office seemed longer than usual, every step heavy with dread. Her assistant, a sharp woman named Teresa, who guarded Rachel's time like a dragon guarding gold, looked up as he approached. She's expecting you, Teresa said. Her expression was unreadable. Ethan nodded and walked to the heavy oak door. He raised his hand to knock, then paused. This was it. The moment that would define everything that came next. He knocked. Come in. Rachel's voice was controlled, professional, no hint of what had happened Friday night. Ethan opened the door. Rachel's office was exactly as imposing as she was. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that cost more than most people's cars, awards and degrees arranged with calculated precision on the walls. Rachel herself sat behind her massive desk, wearing a charcoal gray suit that made her look like she could buy and sell corporations before lunch. She looked up as he entered, and Ethan searched her face for any sign of what was coming. Her expression was perfectly neutral. Close the door, please. He did. Sit. He sat. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Rachel's fingers were laced together on her desk, her posture immaculate. She looked every inch the CEO who'd given that famous TED Talk about ethical leadership and integrity in business. Ethan waited for the axe to fall. I owe you an apology, Rachel said finally. Whatever Ethan had been expecting, it wasn't that. He blinked. I'm sorry? Friday night. My behavior was inappropriate, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. Rachel's voice was steady, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. I put you in an impossible position, and I'm deeply sorry. Ethan's brain struggled to process this. Rachel, Ms. Monroe, I don't... I was drunk. That's not an excuse, it's just a fact. I made advances toward you that crossed every professional boundary, and I did it in a public setting where anyone could have seen. She finally met his eyes, and Ethan saw genuine remorse there. You handled it with more grace than I deserved. You could have, she paused. You could have reported me to HR. You could have leveraged it. You could have done a dozen things that would have been perfectly justified. Instead, you protected my dignity and removed yourself from the situation. I wasn't trying to. I know, which makes it worse. Rachel's jaw tightened. Ethan, I've spent my entire career building credibility in an industry that questions every decision I make because I'm young and female. I've never given anyone ammunition to question my judgment until Friday. Ethan's chest ached. It was a party. People drink at parties. It doesn't. It absolutely does. Rachel's voice was firm. I'm your superior. The power dynamic makes any personal relationship between us inherently problematic. What I did Friday night wasn't just inappropriate social behavior, it was potential abuse of power, even if I was too drunk to realize it in the moment. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Ethan should have felt relieved. She was taking responsibility. She was protecting both of them by naming the problem clearly. This was the ethical, professional response. So why did he feel like something important was being buried? What you said, Rachel's voice was quieter now. Before you left. Did you mean it? If you were sober, I'd make the first move. Ethan's mouth went dry. This was the moment to lie, to walk it back, to say it was just words meant to deflect an awkward situation. But he'd never been good at lying. Yes, he said simply. Rachel closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was something vulnerable in her expression that made Ethan's heart crack. Then we have a problem, she said, because I can't act on that. We can't act on that. Not when I'm your boss. Not when your job security depends on my good opinion. Not when. She stopped, composing herself. It wouldn't be right. I know. Do you? Rachel leaned forward. Ethan, if anyone found out, if anyone even suspected, your career would be destroyed. They'd say you slept your way into this position. They'd question every project you've worked on, every recommendation I've made about your work. And her voice tightened. I'd lose the credibility I've spent 10 years building. The board would see it as proof that I'm too young, too emotional, too female to lead effectively. Ethan wanted to argue, to say that it wasn't fair, that what they felt shouldn't be criminalized by office politics. But he had Mia to think about. So what do we do? He asked. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. We established clear boundaries. Professional only. No more late-night conversations. No more personal discussions. You're my executive assistant, I'm your boss, and that's all we can ever be. It was the right answer, the safe answer. It felt like death. Okay, Ethan said. Okay, Rachel echoed. They sat there for another moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Then Rachel straightened and the CEO mask slid fully back into place. I need you to review the Johnson account files before the 3 o'clock meeting. Teresa has the details. Of course, Ms. Monroe. He stood to leave. Ethan? He paused at the door, looking back. Rachel's mask had slipped just slightly, revealing the woman underneath. Thank you for Friday, for this, for being... She caught herself. For being professional. You're welcome. He left before either of them could say anything else they couldn't take back. The next 2 weeks were an exercise in controlled torture. Ethan and Rachel maintained perfect professional boundaries. Their interactions were polite, efficient, and completely devoid of the warmth that had characterized their working relationship before the party. They communicated through emails and scheduled meetings. They never spoke about anything personal. They were a case study in appropriate workplace behavior. It was killing both of them. Ethan could see it in the way Rachel's shoulders tensed when he entered her office, in the way she avoided looking directly at him during meetings, in the careful, neutral tone she used when giving him assignments. He felt it in his own chest every time he heard her laugh at something someone else said in the break room. Every time he saw her across the office and remembered how her hand had felt on his chest. Every time he went home to Mia and wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake by not just lying that Monday morning. The office had noticed something was off. Everything okay with you and the Ice Queen? His colleague Marcus had asked one day, using the unfortunate nickname some of the staff had for Rachel. You two used to have that whole efficient mind meld thing going. Now it's like you're strangers. Everything's fine, Ethan had lied. Just busy. But it wasn't fine, because boundaries or not, professional distance or not, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. And late at night, alone in his apartment after Mia was asleep, he'd pull out his laptop and stare at the cursor blinking in a blank resignation letter. He never got further than the header. Inktown. 3 weeks after this party, everything changed again. It started with a project. The firm had landed a massive client, a European pharmaceutical company looking to expand into the Asian market. It was the kind of account that could define Monroe and Associates' next 5 years. Rachel was handling the strategy personally, but she needed someone to coordinate the research, manage the timeline, and liaise with the international teams. She assigned it to Ethan. This is a significant opportunity, she'd said in the formal project kickoff meeting, surrounded by 6 other team members. The client is demanding, the timeline is aggressive, and the stakes are high. I need someone I can trust to execute flawlessly. Her eyes had met his across the conference table for just a fraction of a second, and Ethan had understood the real message. I still trust you, despite everything. The project consumed him. 12-hour days became normal. Evening calls with teams in Berlin and Singapore. Mountains of research on pharmaceutical regulations and market analyses. Ethan had to renegotiate his entire life around it. Later pickup times at Mia's after-school program, more dinners with Mrs. Chen as backup, bedtime stories read through video calls when he couldn't make it home in time. Mia had been understanding, in the way 5-year-olds were understanding when they didn't have a choice. Is your work important, Daddy? She'd asked one night through the phone screen, her face pixelated and small. Very important, baby girl. Are you helping people? I'm trying to. Then it's okay, but I miss you. I miss you too, so much. Those conversations gutted him, but he pushed through because this project was his chance to prove himself, to show that he was more than just a competent assistant, to build towards something better for Mia's future, and because it meant working closely with Rachel again. The boundaries they'd established began to erode naturally under the pressure of the project. They had to communicate constantly. Quick questions fired over email, urgent calls at odd hours, strategy sessions that ran late into the evening. At first they maintained strict professionalism, but gradually, inevitably, the old ease crept back in. It started with small things. Rachel ordering his favorite Thai food during a late-night work session without him having to ask. Ethan anticipating her questions before she voiced them during client calls. Shared glances of frustration when a team member missed a deadline. Brief, accidental touches when reaching for the same document. The late nights became routine. Usually it was just the two of them in the office after 9 p.m., the city glittering through the windows while they worked through problems and built strategies. They'd order takeout and spread papers across Rachel's conference table, and somehow the conversation would drift from pharmaceutical regulations to other things. Rachel's childhood in foster care, bouncing between homes until she'd aged out of the system at 18. Ethan's marriage to Claire, the unexpected pregnancy that had changed all their plans, the way losing her had felt like losing gravity, the imposter syndrome that haunted Rachel despite her success, the persistent fear that she was one mistake away from being exposed as inadequate, the guilt Ethan carried about not being enough for Mia, one parent trying to do the work of 2. These conversations happened in the exhausted hours past midnight when defenses were low and truth came easier. They never touched. They never crossed any physical line. But emotionally, they were building something neither of them had given permission for, something that felt dangerously like intimacy. Can I ask you something personal? Rachel had said one night, around 2 a.m., when they'd finally cracked the solution to a logistics problem that had been plaguing them for days. They were both running on coffee and adrenaline, giddy with the success. That's a dangerous question, Ethan had replied, but he'd smiled. Do you ever regret it? Putting your career on hold for Mia? Ethan had considered this carefully. No. But I sometimes wonder who I'd be if I'd made different choices. If Claire hadn't died. If I'd stayed on the track I was on before. He'd looked at Rachel. Do you ever regret what you gave up to get here? I didn't have much to give up. No family. No relationships that lasted longer than a few months. Just ambition and stubbornness. Rachel had been quiet for a moment. Sometimes I wonder if I'm good at my job because I'm talented, or just because I don't have anything else to care about. You're good at your job because you're brilliant, and you work harder than anyone I've ever met. That's not the same as talented. Yes, it is. Talent without work is just potential. You've built something real. Rachel had looked at him then, with an expression that made Ethan's breath catch. So have you. Mia is lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. No, Ethan, you're the kind of father every kid deserves. You're present. You're patient. You're building a life for her even when it costs you everything else. Her voice had softened. That's not luck. That's love. The moment had stretched between them, heavy with all the things they couldn't say. Then Rachel's phone had buzzed with an email from the Berlin team, and the spell had broken. But something had shifted. They both felt it. 4 weeks into the project, Rachel asked to meet Mia. It happened casually during one of their late-night sessions. Ethan had been on a video call with Mia, saying goodnight, when Rachel had walked past and caught a glimpse of the screen. After Mia had hung up, blowing kisses to the camera the way she always did, Rachel had lingered by Ethan's desk. She's beautiful, Rachel had said softly. She's my whole world. I can tell. Rachel had hesitated. Would you mind if I met her? Properly, I mean. Not just a glimpse through a screen or a brief encounter at the office. Every alarm bell in Ethan's head had gone off. This was exactly the kind of boundary blurring they'd promised to avoid. But he'd looked at Rachel's face, at the genuine interest there, the vulnerability in asking, and he'd heard himself say, she'd like that. So the following Saturday, Rachel had met them at the park. Ethan had been nervous in a way that felt absurd. It was just a park visit, just his boss meeting his daughter in a casual public setting. Nothing inappropriate about it, except it felt monumental. Mia had spotted Rachel immediately, running up with the fearless confidence of 5-year-olds everywhere. Are you Daddy's friend from work? I am, Rachel had said, crouching down to Mia's level, exactly like she had months ago in the office. My name is Rachel. What's yours? Mia Rose Cole. I'm 5.5. 5.5 is an excellent age. Do you want to see me on the swings? I can go really high now. I would love to see that. Ethan had watched from a bench as Mia had dragged Rachel to the playground, chattering non-stop about kindergarten and her best friend Sophie and the fish they had in her classroom. Rachel had listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at Mia's jokes, pushing her on the swings with genuine care. It had been perfect. It had been terrifying. Because watching Rachel with his daughter, Ethan had seen something he'd been trying desperately not to imagine, a future. Not just a professional relationship or a controlled friendship, but something real. Something that included Mia's laugh and Rachel's smile and weekend mornings that looked like this. After an hour, they'd ended up back at the bench, Mia between them eating ice cream and swinging her legs with contentment. Rachel, do you have any kids? Mia had asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. No, I don't. Why not? Mia, that's personal, Ethan had said quickly. But Rachel had smiled. It's okay. That's a fair question. She'd looked at Mia thoughtfully. I guess I've been too busy with work. Building a career takes a lot of time. My daddy works a lot too, but he always comes home for dinner, except when he has to work late with you. Rachel's eyes had met Ethan's over Mia's head. I'm sorry about that. I try not to keep your dad at work too long. It's okay. He says it's important, and Mrs. Chen makes good cookies. Mia had taken another lick of her ice cream. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Ethan had choked on air. Mia, no, she's not. We don't. But Rachel had just laughed. A real laugh, unguarded and warm. No, sweetie, I'm your dad's boss. We work together. Oh. Mia had processed this with 5-year-old logic. But you could be his girlfriend too. You're pretty and you're nice and you like swings. That's very sweet, but it's more complicated than that. Why? Because grown-up relationships have a lot of rules. That sounds boring. Sometimes it is, Rachel had said, and there had been something wistful in her voice that made Ethan's chest ache. They'd stayed at the park for another hour. When it was time to leave, Mia had hugged Rachel with the easy affection of someone who'd decided they were friends. "Will you come to the park again?" Mia had asked. Rachel had looked at Ethan, a question in her eyes. He'd nodded. "I'd like that very much," Rachel had said. Walking back to his car with Mia's hand in his, Ethan had felt something crystallize. This wasn't just attraction. It wasn't just chemistry or loneliness or proximity. This was something deeper, something that included Mia, that made room for his whole life, that felt like it could be real if they were brave enough to reach for it. But courage required risk, and Ethan had already lost too much to be careless with what remained. The project wrapped successfully 3 days before the company's annual charity gala. The pharmaceutical client had signed a 5-year contract worth $30 million. Rachel had been ecstatic in the carefully controlled way she allowed herself to be ecstatic in professional settings. A genuine smile, a firm handshake, a terse, excellent work that Ethan had learned to recognize as high praise. The team had celebrated with champagne in the conference room. Rachel had given a short speech thanking everyone, but her eyes had found Ethan's across the room when she'd said, "And particular recognition goes to Ethan Cole, whose coordination and strategic insight were invaluable to this success." After everyone had left, Rachel had called him back to her office. "Close the door." Ethan had, his heart rate picking up. They were alone again, the office quiet around them, and the space felt charged in a way that was becoming familiar and dangerous. "That was incredible work," Rachel had said. "You saved this project at least 3 times. The way you handled the Berlin team's concerns, the market analysis you compiled, the presentation deck you built." She'd stopped, shaking her head. "Ethan, you're wasted as an executive assistant." "I like my job." "I know, but you could be doing more. You should be doing more." Rachel had pulled a folder from her desk. "I'm recommending you for a promotion. Strategic project manager, your own team, significant salary increase, all the recognition you've earned." Ethan had stared at the folder, his mind reeling. This was exactly what he'd hoped for 6 months ago. The career trajectory he'd given up when grief and single fatherhood had narrowed his options. The chance to build something bigger for Mia's future. "Rachel, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it. Say you'll stop hiding your talent because you're afraid of taking up too much space." Her voice had been fierce. "You deserve this. Mia deserves to see her father succeed." He'd taken the folder with shaking hands. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned it." They'd stood there in the quiet office, and Ethan had felt the careful boundaries they'd built start to crumble. "The gala is this Friday," Rachel had said, changing the subject, but not really. "Will you be there?" Ethan had thought of the last gala, the kiss that almost happened, the confession that changed everything. "Do you want me there?" "Yes." No hesitation. "But I understand if, after last time, I'll be there." Rachel's shoulders had relaxed slightly. "Good. That's good." The silence had stretched between them, full of everything they weren't saying. "Rachel, we should keep things professional," she'd said quickly. "At the gala, with the promotion pending, we need to be careful about appearances." "I know. But I'm glad you'll be there." "Me too." Ethan had left her office with the promotion folder clutched in his hand and the certainty that everything was about to change again. He just hadn't known how right he was. The night before the gala, Mia had woken up screaming. Ethan had bolted from his bed to find her tangled in her sheets, tears streaming down her face, gasping for breath between sobs. "Baby, what's wrong? What happened?" "Mommy, I dreamed about Mommy. She was calling me, but I couldn't find her." His heart had broken. Again. The grief never really left. It just waited for moments like this to remind them it was still there. He'd pulled Mia into his lap, rocking her the way he had when she was an infant. "It's okay, sweetheart. It was just a dream. You're safe. I'm here." "But Mommy's not. She's never here." I know, baby girl." They'd sat like that for a long time, Mia crying herself out against his chest, while Ethan whispered comfort and stroked her hair. Eventually she'd fallen back asleep, but Ethan had stayed in her room, watching her breathe in the glow of her nightlight. She was so small, so fragile, so completely dependent on him to keep her world stable. And he was thinking about taking a promotion that would mean more travel, longer hours, less time at home. He was thinking about feelings for his boss that could complicate everything. He was thinking about taking risks with the careful, safe life he'd built to protect his daughter from more loss. Sitting there in the dark, Ethan had made a decision. Whatever happened at the gala, whatever developed with Rachel, Mia had to come first. Not in the abstract way people said it when they meant, "I'll try to balance things," but actually first. First in every decision, first in every choice. Even if it meant walking away from something that felt like it could be extraordinary. Even if it meant staying safe instead of being brave. Because Mia had already lost her mother. She couldn't lose her father too, not to ambition, not to romance, not to anything. Ethan had kissed his daughter's forehead and whispered a promise into the darkness. "I won't let you down, baby girl, I promise." Then he'd gone back to his room and finally, written the resignation letter he'd been avoiding for weeks. He'd bring it to the gala, just in case. Friday arrived with clear skies and a sense of inevitability. Ethan dropped Mia at school with an extra long hug that made her laugh and squirm. "Daddy, you're being silly again." "Can't help it, you're very huggable." "Mrs. Chen is picking me up, right?" "Right, I'll be home late tonight. Work party." "Will Rachel be there?" His heart squeezed. "Yes?" "Tell her I said hi, and that I got an A on my spelling test." "I will definitely tell her that." Mia had skipped into school with her backpack bouncing, completely unaware that her father was preparing to detonate his career. The day at the office had been surreal. Ethan had gone through his normal routine, managing Rachel's calendar, prepping briefings, coordinating meetings, while the resignation letter sat in his bag like a bomb. Every interaction with Rachel had felt weighted with significance. Every smile, every thank you, every moment of easy collaboration had felt like goodbye. Rachel had seemed distracted, nervous even, not her usual controlled self. "Are you okay?" Ethan had asked during a brief moment alone. "Fine, just..." She'd laughed, self-deprecating. "Nervous about tonight. These galas always feel like performance art." "You'll be brilliant. You always are." She'd looked at him then with something vulnerable in her eyes. "Will you save me a dance?" The question had hung in the air between them. Ethan should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have remembered his promise to Mia. Instead, he'd heard himself say, "Of course." Rachel had smiled, a real smile, the kind she usually reserved for moments when they were alone, and Ethan had felt his resolution waver. Maybe he didn't need to resign. Maybe they could make this work. Maybe. But then he'd checked his phone and seen a text from Mrs. Chen with a photo of Mia at pickup, grinning with chocolate on her face from an after-school snack. "Your daughter is an angel. Have fun at your party." And Ethan had remembered what was actually at stake. The gala was being held at the same hotel as last year's holiday party, but in a different venue, a grand ballroom on the ground floor with vaulted ceilings and crystal chandeliers. The event was for charity this year, benefiting education initiatives for underprivileged children. Monroe and Associates had purchased a table, and the firm's leadership was expected to attend and network and smile for photos that would appear in industry publications. Ethan arrived at 7:30, already exhausted. The room glittered with wealth and influence. Board members mingled with clients and investors. The champagne flowed freely, an ironic echo of the holiday party that had started all of this. Ethan grabbed a glass of water and found a spot near the silent auction displays, content to observe from the margins. He spotted Rachel across the room almost immediately. She wore a midnight blue gown that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated, her dark hair loose around her shoulders in a way he'd never seen in the office. She was talking to someone on the board, her posture perfect, her smile professionally warm. She looked beautiful. She looked untouchable. Ethan felt the resignation letter in his jacket pocket, like it was burning through the fabric. The evening progressed through its expected rhythms. Dinner was served, some elaborate chicken dish that Ethan barely tasted. Speeches were given about the importance of education and opportunity. The charity auction raised impressive amounts of money for programs that would help kids like Mia access better resources. Through it all, Ethan was hyper-aware of Rachel at the head table. Every time their eyes met across the room, he felt the pull, the what if, the possibility of something that could be extraordinary if they were just brave enough. Around 9 o'clock, the dancing started. Couples filled the floor, smooth jazz playing while executives swayed with their spouses and partners. Ethan watched from his spot near the bar, nursing his water and considering leaving early. Then Rachel appeared beside him. "You promised me a dance," she said quietly. Ethan's heart stopped. "Rachel, I don't think—" "One dance, that's all I'm asking." Her eyes searched his face. "Please?" He should have said no. He should have handed her the resignation letter right there and walked away. But she was looking at him like he mattered, and he was so tired of being careful, and for just a moment he wanted to feel what it was like to hold her. "One dance," he agreed. They moved to the floor together, finding a spot away from the center of attention. Rachel's hand found his shoulder. His hand settled carefully on her waist. They swayed together to the music, maintaining a respectful distance that felt like torture. "Thank you for coming tonight," Rachel said softly. "I know these things aren't your favorite." "It's not so bad." "Liar," but she was smiling. They danced in silence for a moment, and Ethan felt the careful walls he'd built start to crumble. "Rachel, I've been thinking," she interrupted, "about us, about what's possible." Ethan's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we've been too careful. Maybe there's a way to navigate this that doesn't require us to pretend we don't care about each other." "You're my boss." "The power dynamic. What if you took that promotion? Different department, different supervisor. We wouldn't have a direct reporting relationship anymore." Hope flared in Ethan's chest, dangerous and bright. "You've thought about this?" "I can't stop thinking about it." Rachel's hand tightened on his shoulder. "I can't stop thinking about you. About Mia. About what it felt like at the park last weekend when it was the three of us and everything felt—" She stopped, but Ethan heard what she hadn't said. "Felt like family." "Rachel, if we do this, if we try this and it doesn't work, I know, the risks are enormous. It's not just my career, it's Mia. If she gets attached to you and then we fall apart, I would never hurt her. Or you." Rachel's voice was fierce. "Ethan, I know I'm asking for something that feels impossible, but I also know that what we have is rare, and I don't want to look back in 5 years and regret that I was too afraid to try." Ethan felt something shift in his chest, all the careful protection he'd built around his heart, all the walls he'd constructed to keep life safe and controlled. They were crumbling. Because Rachel was right, what they had was rare, and maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. "If we do this," Ethan said slowly, "we do it right. No secrets, complete transparency, and Mia's well-being comes before everything. If at any point this becomes harmful to her, we stop immediately, no questions." Rachel's eyes were steady on his. "I would never ask you to choose between me and your daughter. She comes first, always." The music swelled around them. Ethan made his choice. "Okay," he whispered. "Let's try." Rachel's face transformed with hope and relief, and something that looked like joy. Then a voice cut through the moment like glass shattering. "Well, isn't this cozy?" They turned to find Laura Finch standing at the edge of the dance floor, a champagne glass in her hand and calculation in her eyes. Laura was a senior vice president, ambitious, ruthless, and Rachel's primary rival within the firm. She'd been passed over for CEO 3 years ago when Rachel got the position, and she'd been waiting for an opportunity to undermine Rachel's authority ever since. She'd just found it. "Ms. Finch," Rachel said, her voice cool. "Enjoying the evening?" "Oh, tremendously." Laura's smile was sharp. "Though I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised to see the CEO dancing so intimately with her executive assistant. Doesn't that violate about 6 different HR policies?" Ethan felt ice flood his veins. Rachel didn't flinch. "Ethan and I are colleagues enjoying a perfectly appropriate dance at a company social event. I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm observing." Laura took a sip of her champagne. "But you know how people talk, Rachel, especially when there's already been speculation." "Speculation?" Ethan couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Laura's eyes slid to him with predatory interest. Oh, you didn't know? There's been talk about the late nights you two spend alone in the office, about the way you look at each other during meetings, about the promotion you're conveniently about to receive after working so closely with the CEO on a major project. She shrugged delicately. I'm sure it's all perfectly innocent, but optics matter in this industry, and right now the optics are questionable. Rachel's hand had dropped from Ethan's shoulder. Her professional mask had slammed back into place. If you have concerns about inappropriate conduct, there are proper channels for raising them. Otherwise, this conversation is over. Of course, just wanted to give you a friendly heads up. Laura's smile widened. After all, we wouldn't want anything to tarnish your reputation right before the board reviews next quarter. That would be such a shame. She walked away, leaving poison in her wake. Rachel and Ethan stood frozen on the dance floor, the music still playing around them while their world collapsed. We should... Rachel's voice was tight. We need to separate. Now. People are watching. She was right. Ethan could feel eyes on them, whispers starting at the edges of the room. Laura had weaponized one dance into ammunition. Rachel, not here. We'll talk Monday. In the office, through proper channels. She was already stepping back, creating distance. I'm sorry, Ethan. I have to... She didn't finish. She just walked away, leaving Ethan alone on the dance floor with everyone watching. He stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of all those eyes, understanding with sickening clarity how quickly rumors could destroy everything they'd built. Then he walked to the coat check, grabbed his jacket, and left the gala without saying goodbye to anyone. In the car, he pulled out his phone and sent Rachel a single text. I'm sorry, this was my fault. Her response came 30 seconds later. No, it was mine. I never should have asked you to dance. I put you in an impossible position. Ethan stared at the screen, then typed carefully. What do we do now? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I don't know, but I can't lose everything I've built. I can't. Ethan understood what she wasn't saying. She was choosing her career over him. It was the rational choice, the safe choice, the choice that protected her reputation and her position. It was also breaking his heart. He drove home in silence, the resignation letter still in his pocket, unused. When he arrived at his apartment, Mrs. Chen was reading on the couch while Mia slept. How was the party? She asked cheerfully. Fine, Ethan lied. Thanks for staying late. After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan checked on Mia. She was sprawled across her bed, stuffed animals scattered around her, completely at peace. He sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe. I tried, baby girl, he whispered. I tried to be brave, but maybe safe is better after all. Mia stirred slightly but didn't wake. Ethan's phone buzzed. Another text from Rachel. We should maintain professional distance until this blows over. I'm sorry. He typed a response. I understand. Take care of yourself. Then he turned off his phone and sat in the dark with his daughter, surrounded by the ruins of a possibility that had been beautiful and brief and ultimately impossible, because some lines couldn't be crossed. Some risks were too great, and some endings came not with dramatic conflict, but with quiet resignation and the understanding that love sometimes wasn't enough. Except this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because on Monday morning, everything would change again in a way neither of them expected. And the choice between safety and courage would become a choice between survival and truth. But for now, in the quiet darkness of Mia's room, Ethan let himself grieve for what might have been, and tried not to think about how Rachel's hand had felt in his during that one perfect dance. The weekend passed in a fog of dread and second-guessing. Ethan kept his phone off most of Saturday, unable to face whatever messages might be waiting. He threw himself into being present for Mia, pancakes with extra chocolate chips, a trip to the library, an afternoon at the playground where she made him push her on the swings until his arms ached. She chattered about her week, about the classroom fish that had learned to recognize her, about how Sophie's mom was having a baby, and wasn't that exciting? He smiled and nodded and tried not to think about Rachel's text message burning in his memory like a brand. I can't lose everything I've built. Sunday evening, after Mia was asleep, Ethan finally turned his phone back on. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages. Most were from colleagues asking if he was okay, if he'd heard the rumors, if it was true that he and Rachel were involved. A few were from Rachel herself, each one more desperate than the last. We need to talk before Monday. Please call me. I need to explain. Ethan, I'm sorry. I panicked. Can we please talk? The last one had come at 2 in the morning. I made the wrong choice on Friday. I know that now, but I don't know how to fix it. Ethan stared at the messages for a long time. Part of him wanted to call her immediately, to hear her voice, to find some path through this disaster. But the larger part, the part that had watched Mia sleep peacefully, untouched by the chaos her father had created, knew that calling Rachel would only make things worse. So he typed a careful response. Let's talk Monday. In your office, professionally. We need a plan. Her reply came within seconds. Thank you. I'll see you at 8. Ethan set an alarm for 6:30 and tried to sleep. He managed maybe 3 hours. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, the sky threatening rain. Ethan dropped Mia at school with a kiss and a promise to be home for dinner, a promise that felt increasingly fragile given what was waiting for him at the office. The drive downtown felt like heading toward an execution. The Monroe and Associates building looked the same as always, glass and steel reflecting the overcast sky. But when Ethan walked through the lobby, he felt the difference immediately. People stared. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone whispered something that sounded like homewrecker as he passed. His stomach turned to ice. The elevator ride to the 15th floor took an eternity. When the doors opened, he found Teresa already at her desk outside Rachel's office. Her usual professional smile was nowhere to be found. She's expecting you, Teresa said, her voice carefully neutral. Go right in. Ethan knocked once and entered. Rachel stood by her window, her back to the door, silhouetted against the gray morning light. She wore a black suit that looked like armor. Her shoulders were rigid with tension. Close the door, she said, without turning around. He did. Lock it. Ethan hesitated, then turned the lock. The click seemed impossibly loud in the quiet office. Rachel finally turned to face him. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Her usual flawless composure cracked at the edges, but her expression was determined. I'm sorry, she said immediately. For Friday, for my text messages, for panicking and pushing you away when I should have stood beside you. Ethan's carefully prepared speech evaporated. Rachel, let me finish, please. She moved closer, her hands clasped in front of her like she was physically holding herself together. I spent all weekend thinking about this, about what Laura said, about the rumors, about what we risk by being honest about our feelings. And I realized something. What? I've spent my entire career being afraid. Afraid of not being good enough. Afraid of being too young, too female, too unconventional. Afraid that one mistake would prove everyone right who said I didn't deserve this position. Her voice cracked slightly. On Friday, when Laura confronted us, that fear won. I chose my reputation over you, over us. And I was wrong. Ethan's throat tightened. You weren't wrong to protect yourself. Laura was threatening everything you've worked for. She was threatening my image, my carefully constructed facade of perfection. Rachel shook her head. But what we have, what we could have, that's real. And I'm done sacrificing real things for the appearance of propriety. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try, properly, openly. Rachel took a breath. I'm going to go to HR today and disclose our relationship. I'm going to recuse myself from any supervisory role over you. You'll report to someone else for the promotion you're getting, and we'll establish clear boundaries between our professional and personal lives. It won't be easy, and people will talk, but it's the right thing to do. Ethan felt hope and terror war in his chest. Rachel, if you do that, Laura will use it against you. She'll say you abused your position. She'll make it seem, I know what she'll say. But here's what actually happened. I developed feelings for someone who works for me. I recognized the ethical complications. I established clear boundaries, and when those boundaries became unsustainable, I took action to resolve the conflict of interest properly. Rachel's voice was steady now, certain. That's not abuse of power, that's accountability. The board might not see it that way. Then I'll make them see it. And if they don't, if they decide this disqualifies me from leadership, Then at least I'll know I chose honesty over hiding. She stepped closer, close enough that Ethan could see the fear beneath her determination. I'm tired of being afraid, Ethan. I want to choose you, if you'll still have me. Everything Ethan had planned to say, about resignation, about protecting Mia, about the impossibility of making this work, dissolved in the face of Rachel's raw courage. I have a 5-year-old daughter who has to come first, he said quietly. Always. Before my career, before my feelings, before everything. I know. If we do this and it falls apart, she's the one who gets hurt. I know that too. Rachel's eyes were steady on his. Which is why I promise you, I will never ask you to choose between me and Mia. If at any point this relationship becomes harmful to her, we stop. No argument, no negotiation. She comes first. Laura's going to make our lives hell. Probably, but I'm very good at my job and the numbers don't lie. The pharmaceutical contract I just closed is worth $30 million over 5 years. My leadership has increased revenue by 40% in 3 years. The board may not like my personal choices, but they like profit. A hint of Rachel's usual confidence crept into her voice. Let Laura try to undermine me. I'll beat her on merit. Ethan wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that courage could win over fear, that honesty could survive corporate politics, that love could build something stable enough for a 5-year-old girl who'd already lost too much. What about the rumors, he asked. What about what people are already saying? We control the narrative. We go to HR first, before Laura can file whatever complaint she's planning. We're transparent about the timeline, that nothing happened while you were directly under my supervision, that we established boundaries, that we're resolving the conflict properly now. Rachel's expression softened. It's not perfect. People will still talk, but it's honest. And if honest isn't enough, then we'll deal with that together. The word together hung in the air between them, heavy with promise and possibility. Ethan thought about Mia asking if Rachel was his girlfriend, about the way Rachel had pushed her on the swings with genuine care, about sitting in the dark Friday night, grieving for something that had felt beautiful and brief and impossible. Maybe it didn't have to be impossible. Maybe safe wasn't always better than brave. Okay, he said. Let's do this right. Rachel's face transformed with relief and hope. Yeah? Yeah? But we set boundaries, real ones. At work, we're professionals. Period. No touching, no private meetings without clear business purpose. Complete transparency about our relationship status with anyone who needs to know. Agreed. And you let me tell Mia, in my own time, in my own way. I won't hide you from her, but I need to make sure she understands and is okay with it before anything, Rachel finished. Ethan, I meant what I said. She comes first. I'm not trying to replace her mother or rush into anything. I just want the chance to see where this goes. And the promotion? Is yours because you earned it, not because we have feelings for each other. Rachel's voice was firm. I'm recusing myself from the decision entirely. Marcus Chen from the Asia division will be your supervisor. He's brilliant, fair, and completely uninvolved in any of this. Ethan processed this. You've really thought this through. I had a whole weekend with nothing to do but think and panic, and realize I was being a coward. Rachel smiled, tentative and hopeful. I don't want to be a coward anymore. You've never been a coward. You've been careful. There's a difference. Maybe, but careful was keeping me from something real. She reached out, then stopped herself, remembering the boundaries they'd just set. Her hand dropped back to her side. Can I take you to dinner? Tonight. A real date. Away from the office, completely separate from work. Ethan's chest ached with want and worry. I have to pick up Mia at 5:30. What about Saturday? If you can get a babysitter. Saturday I could do. Rachel's smile widened, genuine and unguarded in a way that made Ethan's heart skip. It's a date. Someone knocked on the office door, loud, aggressive knocking that made them both flinch. Ms. Monroe, I need to speak with you, now. Laura Finch's voice carried through the wood, sharp with authority. Rachel's expression hardened. And so it begins. She unlocked and opened the door to find Laura standing there with 2 other board members, Richard Hoffman and Patricia Zhang. All three looked grim. Ms. Finch, Richard, Patricia. Rachel's voice was coolly professional. I wasn't expecting you. I have a 9 o'clock with the marketing team. This takes precedence, Richard interrupted. He was in his 60s, silver-haired and stern, one of the old guard who'd questioned Rachel's appointment from the beginning. We've received some disturbing information about your conduct, and we need to address it immediately. Rachel's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. Of course. Ethan, would you excuse us? Actually, Laura said, her eyes gleaming with malice, Mr. Cole should stay. This concerns him directly. Ethan's stomach dropped. Rachel stepped forward slightly, positioning herself between Ethan and the board members. Before we go any further, I'd like to state for the record that I was planning to come to you today about this very matter. Ethan and I have developed a personal relationship, and I intend to handle it with complete transparency and propriety. Patricia's eyebrows rose. So you admit there's been an inappropriate relationship? I admit that Ethan and I have mutual feelings that we've been navigating carefully within professional boundaries. Nothing physical has occurred while he's been under my direct supervision, but to avoid any conflict of interest going forward, I'm recommending that his reporting structure change as part of his upcoming promotion. How convenient, Laura said. You develop feelings for your assistant, manipulate his career advancement, and then simply change his supervisor to make it all look proper. That's not what happened, Ethan said, his voice hard. I earned that promotion based on the pharmaceutical project. My work speaks for itself. Does it? Laura pulled a folder from her bag. Because I have emails here showing that you and Miss Monroe spent dozens of late nights alone together. I have expense reports for dinners and takeout ordered to her office. I have testimony from cleaning staff who saw you here together past midnight on multiple occasions. She turned to the board members. This looks like a classic case of an executive using her position to pursue a subordinate. That is not what happened, Rachel said, her voice ice. Ethan and I worked late because the pharmaceutical project required it. The client was in a different time zone, the timeline was aggressive, and yes, we ordered food because we were working through dinner. Everything was project-related and completely professional. Until Friday night, Laura countered. When you danced together at the gala, in front of everyone, looking like… She paused dramatically. Well, certainly not like boss and employee. Richard crossed his arms. Rachel, I'm going to be blunt. This firm has a reputation to protect. If word gets out that you've been conducting an affair with your assistant, it's not an affair, Ethan interrupted, his voice tight with anger. We haven't done anything wrong. We have feelings for each other, yes, but we've been handling it appropriately. Feelings that developed while you worked closely together, while she had direct power over your career, while you were dependent on her good opinion for your livelihood. Patricia shook her head. Mr. Cole, you may not see it this way, but from the outside, this looks exactly like what we're trying to prevent with our ethics policies. Rachel's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady. I understand your concern, which is why I'm proposing clear steps to address it. Ethan's promotion moves him to a different department with a different supervisor. We'll disclose our relationship to HR. We'll maintain strict professional boundaries at work, and I'll recuse myself from any decisions that directly affect his career. That's not enough, Laura said flatly. The damage is done. You've already compromised your position by pursuing a subordinate. The only way to resolve this properly is for Mr. Cole to resign. Ethan felt the floor drop out from under him. Absolutely not, Rachel said, her voice sharp. Ethan has done nothing wrong. I won't let him be punished for my poor judgment. Then you're admitting it was poor judgment? Richard pounced on this. Rachel, you're making this worse. I'm admitting that I should have come to you sooner. I should have disclosed these feelings before they became complicated, but I will not let you force out a talented employee because I was too slow to act. Laura smiled, cold and triumphant. Ms. Monroe, I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. I've already filed a formal complaint with HR alleging abuse of power. The board will have to investigate. And during that investigation, your authority will be questioned, your decisions will be scrutinized, and every success you've had will be re-examined through the lens of whether you were acting in the company's best interest or your own. The threat was clear. Laura wasn't just trying to remove Ethan. She was trying to destroy Rachel's entire career. Rachel understood this. Ethan could see it in the way her shoulders stiffened in the flash of fear in her eyes before her mask slammed back into place. "Then investigate," Rachel said quietly. "Look at my record. Look at the results I've delivered. Look at the pharmaceutical contract that came in ahead of schedule and over budget projections. Look at the expansion into European markets that's exceeded all targets. Look at the revenue growth, the client retention, the employee satisfaction scores." Her voice strengthened. "And then ask yourself if you really believe I would compromise this company's success for personal gratification." Patricia and Richard exchanged glances. Laura's smile faltered slightly. "The investigation will take weeks," Patricia said slowly, "during which time, Rachel, you'll need to step back from any direct supervision of Mr. Cole, and we'll need to review the circumstances of his promotion to ensure there was no favoritism." "That's fair," Rachel said. "It's not fair," Ethan protested. "I earned that position. My work will be reviewed objectively," Richard interrupted. "Mr. Cole, I understand this is frustrating, but given the circumstances, we have to ensure everything was above board. If your work truly speaks for itself, the review will confirm that." Rachel touched Ethan's arm briefly, a gesture of solidarity that probably broke the boundaries they'd just set, but he was too angry to care. "Fine," he said tightly. "Review whatever you want. You'll see I earned it." "We'll be in touch," Patricia said. She and Richard turned to leave. Laura lingered at the door. "Rachel, a word of advice? In the future, try to keep your personal life from interfering with your professional responsibilities. It's what separates executives from employees." Then she swept out, leaving poison in her wake. The door closed behind them. For a long moment, Rachel and Ethan stood in silence, the enormity of what had just happened settling over them like ash. "I'm sorry," Rachel said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I should have anticipated this. I should have gone to HR first thing this morning instead of waiting to talk to you. This isn't your fault. Laura was already planning this." "But I gave her ammunition." Rachel moved to her desk, gripping the edge like she needed the support. "One dance, one moment of not being careful enough, and she weaponized it." Ethan crossed to her. "Hey, look at me." Rachel raised her eyes, and he saw the fear there beneath the professional control. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," he said quietly. "We knew people would talk. What matters is that we're being honest, that we're handling this the right way. What if the right way isn't enough? What if the board decides I'm a liability? Then the board is making a mistake. You're the best CEO this firm has ever had. The numbers prove it. Numbers don't matter if the board loses confidence in my judgment." Rachel's voice cracked. "Ethan, I could lose everything. My position, my reputation, my entire career, and you could lose your promotion, your job, your financial stability, all because I couldn't keep my feelings professional. No, all because we're human." Ethan reached out, then remembered they were at work and dropped his hand. "Rachel, listen to me. We can get through this, but you have to stop blaming yourself. We both made choices. We both take responsibility, together." Rachel closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, some of the fear had been replaced with determination. "Okay, together. But we do this smart. No more private meetings unless absolutely necessary. Everything documented. Complete transparency with HR and the board." "Agreed." "And I think," Rachel's voice wavered, "I think we should put the personal relationship on hold. Until this is resolved, it's too risky to—" "No." She blinked. "What?" "No," Ethan repeated, his voice firm. "I'm not putting my life on hold because Laura Finch wants to play political games. We set boundaries at work, yes. We maintain professionalism, yes. But I am not hiding the fact that I care about you just to make this easier for the board. Ethan, if we keep seeing each other while they're investigating, then we keep seeing each other. Away from work, on our own time, with complete transparency about it." He held her gaze. "Rachel, you said you were done being afraid. You said you wanted to choose honesty over hiding. Did you mean it?" "Yes, but—" "Then we don't hide. We tell the truth, we follow the rules, and we let our work speak for itself." Ethan's voice softened. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. but I'm not letting Laura Finch dictate my personal life. Rachel stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, you're right. We do this honestly or not at all. So, Saturday? Still a date? A small smile tugged at her lips despite everything. Still a date. Someone knocked on the door again, lighter this time, apologetic. Miss Monroe? Your 9 o'clock is here, Teresa called through the door. Reality crashed back in. Rachel straightened, pulling her professional armor back into place. Thank you, Teresa. Tell them I'll be right there. She looked at Ethan, and for just a moment, the mask slipped enough for him to see the woman beneath, scared, vulnerable, but trying so hard to be brave. We should both get to work, she said, separately. I'll email you about the schedule changes and the next steps with HR. Okay. Ethan turned to leave, but paused at the door. Rachel, for what it's worth, I think you're going to come out of this stronger. You're too good at what you do for them to ignore that. I hope you're right. I am. He left her office and walked past Teresa, who gave him a look that might have been sympathy or might have been judgment. He couldn't tell anymore. The office felt different now, charged with an awareness that made his skin prickle. People glanced at him as he walked to his desk, then quickly looked away. Whispers followed in his wake. Marcus Chen appeared at his cubicle 30 minutes later. Marcus was in his mid-40s, sharp and competent, the kind of manager who led by example rather than authority. He'd always been friendly to Ethan, professional but warm. Today, his expression was carefully neutral. Ethan, can we talk in the conference room? Ethan's stomach tightened. Of course. They walked in silence to one of the small conference rooms. Marcus closed the door and gestured for Ethan to sit. I'm going to be your new supervisor, Marcus said without preamble. Effective immediately. Rachel recused herself from any management role over you as of this morning. I see. The board has asked me to review your work on the pharmaceutical project to confirm that your promotion was merit-based. Marcus's voice was even, professional. I want you to know that I'm approaching this objectively. I don't know what's happening between you and Rachel, and frankly, it's none of my business. My only concern is whether you earned this promotion through your work. Ethan met his eyes. I did. Then the review will confirm that. Marcus pulled out a tablet. I'll need access to all your project files, communication logs, and deliverables from the past 6 months. I'll also be interviewing team members you worked with to get a complete picture. Whatever you need. This isn't personal, Ethan. I actually hope the review comes back clean, because if your work is as good as Rachel says it is, I'd be lucky to have you on my team. Some of the tension in Ethan's chest eased. Thank you for being fair about this. Of course, but I'm also going to be honest with you. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The optics here are terrible. Even if everything was completely above board professionally, the perception of impropriety is almost as damaging as actual impropriety. You and Rachel are going to face scrutiny, from the board, from colleagues, from clients. Some people will assume you slept your way into this position regardless of what the evidence shows. I know. Can you handle that? The whispers, the judgment, the questioning of your competence? Ethan thought about Claire's funeral, about the pitying looks from colleagues who hadn't known what to say, about the unemployment stretch where he'd sent out hundreds of resumes and got rejection after rejection, about rebuilding his life with Mia while grief tried to drown them both. I've handled worse, he said quietly. Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded. I believe you have. Okay. Get me those files by end of day. And Ethan, for your own sake, be very careful about how you conduct yourself during this investigation. No private meetings with Rachel, no appearances of special treatment, nothing that could be used against either of you. Understood. Good. Let's get to work. The rest of the day passed in a blur of document gathering and damage control. Ethan compiled every file, every email, every deliverable from the pharmaceutical project. The work spoke for itself. Hundreds of hours of strategic analysis, client communication, problem-solving that had saved the project multiple times. He'd earned this promotion. The evidence was overwhelming, but evidence didn't stop the whispers. By lunch, the entire office knew about the investigation. People avoided him in the hallways. Conversations stopped when he approached. Someone had left an anonymous note on his desk that just said, "Shameful," in angry capitals. Ethan threw it away and kept working. Around 3 o'clock, his phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor. "Ethan, I hate to bother you at work, but Mia's school just called. She's in the nurse's office with a fever. They need someone to pick her up." His heart stopped. He was supposed to be in a meeting with Marcus in 15 minutes to go over the first round of file reviews. He called Mrs. Chen back immediately. "I'm so sorry," she said when she answered. "I know this is terrible timing, but they said her temperature is 101 and rising. They can't let her stay at school." "No, of course not. I'll—" Ethan looked at his computer screen, at the mountain of work still waiting, at the meeting reminder flashing on his calendar. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Thank you for calling." He hung up and grabbed his jacket, his mind racing through logistics. He'd have to cancel the meeting with Marcus. He'd have to take Mia home, get her settled, probably stay with her for the rest of the day, which meant falling behind on the file review, which meant giving Laura more ammunition about his lack of commitment. But Mia was sick. There was no choice. He was halfway to the elevator when he ran into Rachel coming out of a client meeting. She took one look at his face and her professional mask slipped. "What's wrong?" "Mia's sick. School called. I have to go get her." "Of course, go. Is she okay?" "Fever. Probably just a virus, but you need to be there. Go, Ethan. I'll let Marcus know you had a family emergency." "I had a meeting with him." "I'll handle it." Rachel's hand touched his arm briefly, then dropped. "Your daughter comes first. Always." Ethan felt something crack in his chest. Here, in the middle of everything falling apart, Rachel was still putting Mia first. "Thank you," he managed. "Text me when you know she's okay." "I will." He made it to Mia's school in 18 minutes, breaking at least 3 traffic laws. The nurse's office was familiar territory. He'd picked Mia up sick enough times in the past 2 years to know the routine. Sign her out, collect her things, bundle her into the car with assurances that they'd get her home and comfortable. Mia looked small and miserable in the passenger seat, her face flushed with fever. "My throat hurts, Daddy." "I know, sweetheart. We'll get you home and give you medicine and you can rest, okay?" "Will you read to me?" "As much as you want." She dozed fitfully on the drive home, waking occasionally to cough or whimper. Ethan's heart broke with every small sound of distress. By the time they reached the apartment, her fever had climbed to 102. The next 4 hours were a blur of children's acetaminophen, cool washcloths, and reading Goodnight Moon on repeat while Mia drifted in and out of feverish sleep. Around 6 o'clock, she finally settled into deeper rest, her temperature dropping to 100. Ethan sat beside her bed, one hand resting on her small shoulder, and let himself breathe. His phone had been buzzing periodically with work emails, but he'd ignored them all. Now he finally looked. 3 emails from Marcus about rescheduling their meeting, 2 from HR about setting up his disclosure interview, 1 from the building's IT department about reviewing his computer access logs, and 1 from Rachel sent an hour ago. "How is she?" Ethan typed back. "Fever's down, she's sleeping, probably just a virus, but it scared me." Rachel's response came immediately. "Of course it did. You're a good father. Take care of her. Work can wait." Ethan stared at those words, "Work can wait," and felt the weight of the day crash over him. The investigation, the whispers, the impossible balancing act of trying to prove himself professionally while being present for his daughter. Another text from Rachel. "I know you have a million things on your mind, but I want you to know something. Whatever happens with this investigation, whatever the board decides, I don't regret any of it. I don't regret caring about you. I don't regret that dance. I don't regret choosing honesty." Ethan's throat tightened. He typed carefully, "I don't regret it either. But I'm scared, Rachel. Not for me. For Mia. If I lose this job, if my reputation gets destroyed, she's the one who pays the price. I won't let that happen. I promise you, Ethan, I will fight for your career and your reputation like it's my own. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do, because you matter, both of you." Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the truth of those words settle in his chest alongside the fear. Mia stirred beside him, her small hand reaching for his. Daddy? I'm here, baby girl. I had a bad dream. Want to tell me about it? You went away, like Mommy. Her voice was small and frightened. You didn't come back. Ethan's heart shattered. He pulled her gently into his lap, careful of her fever. Sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. I promise. I will always come back to you. Promise for real? Promise for real. He pressed a kiss to her warm forehead. You're stuck with me, kiddo. She giggled weakly, then coughed. I'm glad. I like being stuck with you. Me too. They sat like that for a while, Mia's breathing evening out as she drifted back to sleep in his arms. Ethan held her and thought about promises he couldn't fully control, about the investigation that could cost him everything, about Rachel's courage and Laura's malice and the board's judgment. But mostly he thought about this: Mia's weight in his arms, her trust that he would always be there, the responsibility of being her entire world. Whatever happened at work, he couldn't fail her. He wouldn't. His phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Rachel. Saturday might not be the best timing for a date. Let's reschedule when Mia's better and things are calmer. You have enough to deal with right now. Ethan almost agreed. It would be easier to cancel, to focus on Mia's recovery and the work crisis, to put his personal life on hold until the storm passed. But then he remembered Rachel's face that morning. I'm done being afraid. He typed back, Saturday works if you don't mind keeping it low-key. Maybe just coffee. An hour away from everything. I could use the reminder that normal still exists. Are you sure? I'm sure. Besides, someone once told me that safe isn't always better than brave. Smart person. She has her moments. It's a date. I'll find somewhere quiet, away from anywhere we might run into colleagues. Perfect. Ethan set his phone down and adjusted his hold on Mia, who had started to snore softly against his chest. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic outside. The real world felt very far away. For just this moment, he let himself believe that everything might actually work out. Then Mia coughed again, and he went to get more medicine, because some things were simple even when everything else was falling apart. You took care of the people you loved. The rest you figured out as you went. By Wednesday, Mia's fever had broken, but the office situation had only gotten worse. Marcus had completed his preliminary review of Ethan's work on the pharmaceutical project and scheduled a meeting to discuss his findings. Ethan sat across from him in the same conference room where this had all started, his stomach tight with anxiety despite knowing his work was solid. Marcus opened a tablet and scrolled through what looked like pages of notes. His expression was unreadable. I've reviewed all your project files, communication logs, and deliverables, Marcus began. I've also interviewed 6 team members who worked with you on various aspects of the pharmaceutical account. Ethan waited, barely breathing. Your work is exceptional, Marcus said finally. The strategic analysis you compiled on Asian market entry was more thorough than anything I've seen from directors with 10 years more experience. Your coordination of the international teams was flawless. You identified and resolved 3 critical problems that could have derailed the entire project. Frankly, if anything, you're underqualified for the promotion Rachel recommended. You should be 2 levels higher. Relief flooded through Ethan's chest. So the promotion stands? Based purely on merit? Absolutely. You earned it 10 times over. Marcus paused, and Ethan heard the but coming before he said it. But we have a problem. What kind of problem? Laura Finch has been talking to board members. She's arguing that even if your work quality is high, the optics of Rachel promoting someone she's romantically involved with are too damaging to ignore. She's pushing for the promotion to be delayed pending the full ethics investigation. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. You just said my work speaks for itself. It does. But Laura's making this about more than your work. She's making it about Rachel's judgment, about the firm's reputation, about whether we can trust our CEO to make objective decisions. Marcus leaned forward. Ethan, I'm going to be straight with you. Even though you did nothing wrong, you're caught in the middle of a political battle that has very little to do with you and everything to do with people who want to see Rachel fail. So what happens now? The board meets Friday to discuss the ethics complaint. They'll review my findings, hear from HR, and make a decision about both your promotion and Rachel's continued authority over executive decisions. Marcus's expression was grim. I've recommended they approve your promotion immediately based on merit, but I'm not confident they'll listen. And Rachel is fighting for her career. Marcus closed his tablet. Look, I don't know what's going on between you two personally, and I'm not asking, but I will say this. She's been one of the best CEOs this firm has ever had. If the board removes her over this, they're making a massive mistake. They won't remove her. They can't. The numbers aren't everything when reputation is on the line. Marcus stood. I'm sorry, Ethan. I wish I had better news. For what it's worth, I think you're both handling an impossible situation with a lot more grace than most people would. After Marcus left, Ethan sat alone in the conference room and let himself feel the full weight of it. His career was being held hostage by political games. Rachel was fighting battles on multiple fronts, and all because they'd had the audacity to care about each other. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Marcus told me about the review. I'm so proud of you. Your work was brilliant, thanks. But it might not matter if the board decides to make an example of us. I won't let that happen. The board meeting is Friday. I'm preparing my defense. What can I do to help? Focus on Mia. Take care of yourself. Let me handle this. Ethan wanted to argue, to insist on fighting beside her, but he had Mia to think about, and Rachel was right. She was better equipped to navigate board politics than he was. Okay, but I'm here if you need me. I know, that matters more than you realize. He pocketed his phone and headed back to his desk, where a small group had gathered near the coffee station. They scattered when they saw him approaching, but not before he caught fragments of their conversation. Inappropriate relationship. Using him to get ahead. She should know better. Ethan ignored them and focused on his work. He had reports to finish, emails to answer, a job to do regardless of what people were whispering. But the words followed him like smoke, making it hard to breathe. At lunch, he escaped to a sandwich shop 3 blocks away where nobody from the office would see him. He was halfway through a turkey club when his phone rang. Mia's school. Again. His heart seized. Mr. Cole? This is Principal Davies from Oakwood Elementary. I'm calling because we've had an incident involving Mia. Is she hurt? Is she okay? She's physically fine, but there's been a situation we need to discuss. Can you come to the school? 20 minutes later, Ethan was sitting in Principal Davies' office with Mia beside him. His daughter's eyes were red from crying, her small hands twisted together in her lap. Across from them, the principal looked uncomfortable. Mia got into an altercation with another student during lunch, Principal Davies explained. According to witnesses, the other child made some comments about Mia's family situation, and Mia responded by pushing her. Ethan's stomach dropped. Mia doesn't push people. She's never... I know this is out of character, which is why I wanted to talk to you directly. The principal pulled out a written statement. The other student apparently said that Mia's father was sleeping with his boss and that everyone at her dad's work was talking about it. Mia pushed her and said she was lying. The room tilted. Ethan looked at Mia, who was staring at her shoes with tears streaming down her face. Baby girl, he said softly. Can you tell me what happened? Sophie's mom told her, Mia whispered, that you were doing bad things at work, that you were going to get fired. Sophie told everyone at lunch and they all laughed at me and said you were a cheater like her daddy, who left. Her voice broke. So I pushed her. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know pushing is wrong, but she was being mean. Ethan felt rage and heartbreak war in his chest. Sophie's mother worked in accounting at Monroe and Associates. She'd heard the rumors and brought them home, where they'd filtered down to children who didn't understand nuance or context, only that Mia's father was supposedly doing something shameful. Mr. Cole, Principal Davies said gently, I don't know what's happening in your personal life, and it's not my business. But when adult situations start affecting children at school, we have to address it. Mia's never been in trouble before, so I'm only giving her a warning this time. But I need to know that home is stable. Home is completely stable, Ethan said, his voice tight. My daughter is my priority. Always. What's happening at work is... He stopped, unsure how to explain something he barely understood himself. It's complicated. but it doesn't change how much I love Mia or how present I am in her life. I believe you. But Mia's hearing things that are upsetting her. Is there anything you can do to shield her from the adult drama? Shield her. As if he could control what other parents whispered, what other children repeated, what poison Laura Finch's campaign was spreading. I'll talk to her, Ethan said. Help her understand. And I'll speak with Sophie's mother about keeping adult business away from children. I think that would be wise. Principal Davies stood. Mia, I know you were upset, but pushing is never okay. Next time someone says something mean, you come find a teacher. Understand? Mia nodded miserably. They left the office hand in hand. Ethan drove them home in silence, his mind racing. He needed to talk to Mia, to explain what was happening in terms a 5-year-old could understand. But how did you tell your daughter that adults were being cruel because her father had feelings for someone? How did you explain office politics and power dynamics and the cost of being honest? Back at the apartment, Ethan settled Mia on the couch with her favorite stuffed elephant. Am I in trouble? She asked in a small voice. No, baby girl, but we need to talk about what happened today. I shouldn't have pushed Sophie. No, you shouldn't have, but I understand why you were upset. Ethan sat beside her. Mia, sometimes grown-ups make things complicated, and sometimes other grown-ups talk about things they don't fully understand. What Sophie said about me, it's not true. I'm not doing anything bad at work. But Sophie's mom said, Sophie's mom doesn't know the whole story. Here's the truth. Rachel, my friend from work that you met at the park, I like her a lot, more than just as a friend, and she likes me too. But some people at work think that's wrong because she's my boss. Mia processed this with 5-year-old logic. But you said you could be friends and a boss. It's more complicated than that. When a boss and someone who works for them like each other the way Rachel and I do, there are rules about how to handle it properly. We're trying to follow those rules, but some people think we're doing it wrong. Are you? The question hit him like a punch. I don't think so, sweetheart. We're trying to do the right thing. But the right thing isn't always easy, and not everyone agrees on what it is. Mia was quiet for a moment. Do you love Rachel? Ethan's breath caught. He hadn't let himself use that word, even in his own head. It felt too big, too fast, too dangerous. But his daughter was looking at him with complete trust, waiting for honesty. I think I might, he said quietly. Is that okay? Will she be my new mommy? No, baby. Nobody will ever replace your mom. She's someone separate, someone new. If things work out, she might become part of our family. But your mom will always be your mom. Mia nodded slowly. I miss Mommy. I know, me too. But I like Rachel. She's nice, and she pushes good on the swings. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. She does push good on the swings. If people at your work are being mean about her, you should tell them to stop. I'm trying, sweetheart. It's just hard when grown-ups get their minds made up about something. Then you should quit and get a different job where people aren't mean. The simplicity of 5-year-old solutions. If only it were that easy. I might have to do that, Ethan admitted. Would you be okay if we had to make some changes? Maybe move to a smaller apartment for a while? Or, I don't care about the apartment, Daddy. I just want you to be happy. You're sad a lot since Mommy died. But when you talk about Rachel, you smile different, like you used to. Ethan pulled his daughter into his arms, overwhelmed by her perception and her selflessness. When did you get so smart? I'm 5.5. That's basically a genius. He laughed despite the tears threatening. Basically. They sat together on the couch, and Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Mia wasn't fragile. She was resilient. She could handle change if it came with honesty and love. Maybe he'd been so focused on protecting her from loss that he'd forgotten to show her what fighting for happiness looked like. His phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. I heard about what happened at Mia's school. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. It's not your fault. It's gossip and cruelty. But Mia's okay. We talked. Is there anything I can do? Ethan looked at his daughter, who was now watching cartoons with her elephant clutched close. Actually, yes. Saturday. Can we bring Mia? I think she needs to see that what we have is real and good, not something to be ashamed of. There was a long pause. Are you sure? I don't want to put more pressure on her. I'm sure. She asked if I love you. I think she deserves to see what we're trying to build. Another pause. Okay. The park again? Ice cream after? Perfect. Ethan set his phone down and felt something like hope settle in his chest. The board meeting was Friday. His career hung in the balance. Rachel's position was under attack. But on Saturday, he was going to take his daughter and the woman he was falling for to the park, and they were going to be honest about what they meant to each other. Everything else could wait. The next 2 days crawled by in a haze of anxiety and preparation. Ethan worked from home Thursday so he could be present for Mia, who was still rattled from the school incident. They did puzzles together, read books, avoided any mention of work drama. It felt like hiding, but it also felt necessary. A brief respite before whatever storm was coming. Rachel texted periodically with updates. The board had moved the meeting to Thursday evening instead of Friday. Laura had submitted a 20-page brief arguing for Rachel's removal. 3 board members were wavering in their support. I'm scared, Rachel admitted in a text late Thursday afternoon. Not of losing my job, of losing you, of this destroying something good before it even had a chance. You won't lose me, Ethan wrote back. Whatever happens, we figure it out together. Promise? Promise. The board meeting started at 6 o'clock Thursday evening. Ethan put Mia to bed early, reading her 3 extra stories to calm his own nerves as much as hers. By 7:30, he was pacing his living room, checking his phone every 30 seconds for updates. Nothing. 8 o'clock. Still nothing. At 8:45, his phone finally rang. Rachel. He answered on the first ring. How did it go? It's over. Rachel's voice was shaky. They voted. Ethan's heart stopped. And? I keep my position, no formal censure, but she took a shaky breath. Your promotion is delayed 6 months pending completion of the ethics review. They want to make sure there's sufficient distance between us before making any major career moves. Relief and frustration warred in Ethan's chest. 6 months? I'm sorry. I fought for you. Marcus fought for you. But Laura convinced enough board members that the optics required a waiting period. They're not saying you don't deserve it. They're just punishing me anyway. Yes, Rachel's voice cracked. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're paying the price for my poor judgment. Stop. This isn't your fault. It's corporate politics and Laura's vendetta and a bunch of people too afraid to do the right thing. Ethan forced himself to breathe. I can wait 6 months. It's frustrating, but I can handle it. You shouldn't have to handle it. You earned that promotion. And I'll get it, eventually. What matters is that you kept your position. Laura didn't win. She didn't lose either. The board made it clear that I'm on probation. One more controversy, one more hint of impropriety, and they'll remove me. Rachel laughed bitterly. So I get to keep my job while constantly looking over my shoulder. Then we're extra careful. We do everything by the book. We give them no ammunition. Ethan, Rachel's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Maybe we should stop. Maybe this is too hard, too risky. I can't keep watching you suffer consequences for caring about me. No. The word came out harder than he intended. Rachel, listen to me. We just survived the worst of it. The investigation, the board review, Laura's attack. We're still standing. I'm not giving up now. But your promotion will happen in 6 months instead of now. That's annoying, not devastating, and in the meantime, I still have a job, I still have Mia, and I still have you, if you want this. If you're willing to fight through the hard parts to get to the good parts. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, I want this. I'm just scared of hurting you more. Then let me decide what risks I'm willing to take. And right now, I'm willing to risk a 6-month delay for a chance at something real with you. He heard her breath catch. Okay. Saturday's still on? Absolutely. Mia's already planning what ice cream flavor to get. She told you that? She's been talking about it for 2 days. She's very invested in our date. Rachel laughed, genuine and warm. No pressure then. None at all. They talked for another 10 minutes, the conversation slowly shifting from crisis management to normal things, how Mia was doing, what movies Rachel hadn't seen, and whether they should go to the park or try the botanical gardens instead. Normal, everyday conversation that felt precious after days of drama. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt exhausted but hopeful. They'd survived. Not unscathed, but intact. The promotion delay stung, but it wasn't the end of the world. And Saturday was 2 days away. He checked on Mia one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, her elephant tucked under one arm, and then fell into his own bed, asleep before he could overthink anything else. Friday passed quietly. Ethan worked from the office, enduring the whispers and the stares with his head held high. Marcus stopped by his desk to apologize again about the promotion delay and reiterate that it was purely political, not merit-based. A few colleagues who'd worked with him on the pharmaceutical project sent supportive emails, and Laura Finch walked past his desk 3 times, each time with a small, satisfied smile that made Ethan's blood boil. But he kept his composure. 6 months. He could wait 6 months. Saturday morning arrived sunny and unseasonably warm. Mia was up at dawn, bouncing with excitement about their park date with Rachel. "Can I wear my favorite dress, the purple one?" "It's a park, baby girl. You'll want to wear something you can play in." "But it's special. Rachel's coming." Ethan smiled. "Okay, purple dress it is, but we're bringing a change of clothes in case you want to go on the swings." "Deal!" They arrived at the park at 10 o'clock. Rachel was already there, sitting on their usual bench wearing jeans and a simple sweater that somehow made her look both approachable and beautiful. When she saw Mia running toward her, her entire face lit up. "Look at you!" Rachel caught Mia in a gentle hug. "That's a gorgeous dress. It's my favorite. Daddy said I could wear it because today is special." "It is special." Rachel's eyes met Ethan's over Mia's head, warm and grateful. They spent an hour at the playground. Rachel pushed Mia on the swings while Ethan watched from the bench, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Then Mia insisted they all go down the slide together, which resulted in Rachel and Ethan awkwardly trying to fit on a piece of playground equipment designed for children while Mia giggled hysterically. It was perfect. It was normal. It was exactly what they needed. Afterward, they walked to the ice cream shop 2 blocks away. Mia got strawberry with rainbow sprinkles. Rachel got mint chocolate chip. Ethan got vanilla because he was boring and okay with it. They found a table outside and ate their ice cream in comfortable silence, Mia swinging her legs and humming to herself between bites. "Rachel," Mia said eventually, "are you Daddy's girlfriend now?" Ethan nearly choked on his ice cream. Rachel handled it with perfect grace. "Would it be okay with you if I was?" Mia considered this seriously. "Will you be nice to him?" "Very nice." "Will you make him happy?" "I'll try my best." "Will you still be my friend too?" "Absolutely. That's non-negotiable." "What does non-negotiable mean?" "It means it's definitely going to happen, no matter what." Mia nodded, satisfied. "Okay then, you can be his girlfriend, but if you're mean to him, I'll push you." Rachel laughed, surprised and delighted. "That seems fair." Ethan just sat there, overwhelmed by his daughter's simple wisdom and Rachel's perfect responses and the fact that this conversation was happening over ice cream in the sunshine like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe it was. They finished their ice cream and walked back toward the park. Mia ran ahead, chasing pigeons and laughing when they scattered. Rachel's hand found Ethan's, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Thank you for this," Rachel said quietly, "for including me. For letting Mia see that what we have is real. She needed it. We both did. The office is going to be hard for a while. People are going to talk." "Let them talk. We know the truth." Rachel squeezed his hand. 6 months is a long time to wait for your promotion. I've waited longer for things that mattered less." She stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Mia was still ahead of them, distracted by a particularly bold pigeon. "Ethan Cole," Rachel said, her voice soft but certain. "I'm falling in love with you. I thought you should know." His breath caught. "Yeah? Yeah. It's terrifying and complicated and probably still a professional nightmare, but it's true." Ethan pulled her closer, not caring who might see. "I'm falling in love with you too. Have been for weeks, maybe longer." They stood there in the middle of the park, holding each other while Mia chased pigeons and the world kept turning, and everything felt both fragile and indestructible at the same time. Then Mia came running back, breathless and grinning. "Did you see how many I scared away? There were like 100. "There were maybe 10, Ethan corrected. "Okay, but they were big pigeons." Rachel laughed, and the sound was so genuine and joyful that Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This was worth fighting for, worth the delays and the whispers and the political battles. This, his daughter's laughter and Rachel's hand in his and Saturday morning ice cream dates, this was worth everything. They spent another hour at the park before Mia started to fade, her energy depleted by the excitement. Rachel walked them back to Ethan's car, and Mia insisted on hugging her goodbye. "Will you come over for dinner sometime?" Mia asked. "Daddy makes really good spaghetti." Rachel looked at Ethan, a question in her eyes. He nodded. "I would love that," Rachel said, "but you'll have to help me make the salad. Deal?" "Deal." After Mia was buckled in, Rachel lingered by the driver's side door. "Thank you for today," she said again, "for choosing this, choosing us." "Always," Ethan promised. She kissed him then, brief and sweet and full of promise, before stepping back. "I'll text you later?" "Please." He drove home with Mia chattering in the back seat about Rachel and pigeons and ice cream, his heart full despite everything still uncertain. That evening, after Mia was in bed, his phone rang. Not Rachel. Marcus. "Ethan? Sorry to call on a Saturday night, but something's come up." Dread pooled in Ethan's stomach. "What kind of something?" "Laura's made another complaint to HR. She's alleging that you and Rachel are still maintaining an inappropriate relationship in violation of the boundaries the board set." "That's ridiculous. We've been completely professional at work. Today was personal time, completely separate from someone saw you two at the park this afternoon, kissing, with your daughter present." Marcus's voice was carefully neutral. "They sent photos to Laura." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Who?" "I don't know. Laura won't say. But she's using it as evidence that neither of you can be trusted to maintain appropriate boundaries. She's calling for an emergency board meeting Monday morning." "Marcus, we weren't doing anything wrong. We were on our own time, in a public park, with my daughter. That's allowed." "I know, and I'll fight for you. But Ethan," Marcus sighed, "you need to prepare for the possibility that the board might decide this is too much, that the optics are too damaging, regardless of whether you technically violated any policies." After Marcus hung up, Ethan sat in the dark of his living room, fury and fear warring in his chest. They'd followed the rules, they'd been transparent, they'd done everything right. And someone had followed them to the park and photographed them anyway. He called Rachel. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight. "Marcus called you too?" "Yeah, Rachel, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. I should have been more careful." "Stop. This isn't your fault. We were in a public place on personal time. We weren't violating any policy." "But Laura's going to use it against you anyway. Let her try." Rachel's voice was hard now, fierce. "I'm done playing defense. If Laura wants a fight, I'll give her one. Monday morning, I'm going to that board meeting with every piece of evidence of my performance. Every metric that proves I'm the best CEO this firm has had in 20 years. And I'm going to make them choose between their discomfort with my personal life and their commitment to actual results. And if they choose discomfort, then I walk. And I take my $30 million pharmaceutical contract and my European expansion strategy and my reputation with me. Let's see how their stock price handles that." Ethan had never heard her sound like this, not defensive or afraid, but ready for war. "Rachel, I'm serious, Ethan. I'm not letting them punish you anymore. I'm not letting Laura win. Either they back off and let us live our lives, or I leave and build something better somewhere else." "You'd really walk away? For you? In a heartbeat?" Her voice softened. "Ethan, I meant what I said today. I'm falling in love with you, and I'm done pretending that's something to be ashamed of." Ethan closed his eyes, overwhelmed. "What do you need from me?" "Come to the board meeting Monday, with me, as my partner, not my employee. Let's face this together. They're going to throw everything at us." "I know, but we'll be ready." "Okay," Ethan said. "Together." They talked for another hour, strategizing and reassuring each other, and occasionally just sitting in silence on the phone, drawing strength from the connection. When they finally said goodnight, Ethan felt something crystallize in his chest. Fear, yes, but also determination, and a growing certainty that whatever happened Monday, they would face it standing side by side. Sunday passed in a blur of preparation. Rachel sent him documents to review, her performance metrics, revenue reports, client satisfaction scores, evidence of every success she'd delivered. Ethan compiled his own evidence of merit-based promotion qualification, just in case. Mia sensed something was wrong. "Daddy, you're doing your worried face again." "Just work stuff, baby girl. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it about Rachel?" He looked at his daughter, so perceptive and brave. "Some people at work don't like that Rachel and I care about each other. They're trying to cause problems." "That's dumb. You should tell them to mind their own beeswax." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "That's excellent advice. I might use that exact phrasing." "You should. It's very effective." "Effective." "That's what I said." He pulled her into a hug, grateful for her steadying presence. "You know what? You're pretty smart for 5.5. I keep telling you that." Monday morning came too fast. Ethan dropped Mia at school with extra kisses and promises that everything would be okay. He wasn't sure he believed it, but he said it anyway because that's what fathers did. He met Rachel in the lobby of the Monroe & Associates building at 8:30. She wore her power suit, the charcoal gray one that made her look like she could buy and sell companies before lunch. Her hair was pulled back severely, her expression set. She looked ready for battle. "You ready?" she asked. Ethan took her hand right there in the lobby where anyone could see. "Ready?" They rode the elevator to the 20th floor where the board meeting rooms were located. Laura was already there, standing outside the main conference room with Richard Hoffman and 2 other board members. Her smile was predatory. "Rachel, Ethan, so glad you could both make it." "Let's get this over with," Rachel said curtly. They filed into the conference room. The full board was assembled, 12 people who would decide their fate. Patricia Zhang sat at the head of the table, her expression carefully neutral. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Patricia began. "We're here to discuss new allegations brought by Ms. Finch regarding ongoing inappropriate conduct between Ms. Monroe and Mr. Cole." Laura stood, pulling out a folder. "I have photographs taken Saturday afternoon showing Miss Monroe and Mr. Cole in what can only be described as a romantic encounter in a public park. With Mr. Cole's young daughter present, I might add." She slid the photos across the table. Ethan caught a glimpse. Him and Rachel standing close, holding hands, that brief kiss by his car. Private moments made public. Weaponized. "These photos demonstrate a clear pattern of behavior," Laura continued. "Despite the board's directive to maintain professional distance, Ms. Monroe has continued to pursue a relationship with a subordinate employee. This represents poor judgment at best, and at worst, a flagrant disregard for this firm's ethics policies." Rachel stood, her voice calm but steel underneath. "May I respond?" Patricia nodded. "First, let me address the facts. Those photographs were taken during personal time, in a public location, with complete transparency about our relationship status. We violated no company policy. Second, Mr. Cole is not my subordinate. As of our last meeting, his reporting structure was changed to Marcus Chen. I have no supervisory authority over him. Third," her voice hardened, "I'd like to know who hired a private investigator to follow me and photograph me during my private time, because that seems far more ethically questionable than 2 consenting adults having ice cream with a 5-year-old. Laura's smile faltered. "No one hired an investigator," she said quickly. "Someone happened to be at the park and recognized you." "Convenient," Rachel said dryly. "Regardless, the photos show nothing inappropriate, nothing that violates policy, nothing that should concern this board." "They show poor judgment," Laura shot back. "You're the CEO of this firm. Your actions reflect on all of us. Carrying on a public relationship with someone who, until very recently, reported directly to you, it's a bad look. It makes us seem unprofessional." "What makes us unprofessional is this witch hunt," Rachel's voice cut through the room. "Let me be clear about what's actually happening here. Ms. Finch is using my personal life as a weapon because she can't attack my professional performance. So let's talk about that performance. She pulled out her tablet and projected a presentation onto the conference room screen. Numbers filled the display: revenue growth, client retention, market expansion, profit margins. In the 3 years since I became CEO, this firm's revenue has increased 42%. Client satisfaction is at an all-time high. We've successfully expanded into 3 new international markets. We just closed the largest contract in company history. Employee retention is up, productivity is up, stock price is up. Rachel's eyes swept the room. These are facts, measurable, objective facts. Now, someone tell me how my relationship with Ethan Cole has negatively impacted any of these metrics. Silence. That's what I thought, Rachel continued, because it hasn't. My personal life has had zero impact on my ability to lead this company effectively. What it has impacted is Ms. Finch's political agenda. That's not fair, Laura protested. I'm trying to protect this firm's reputation. No, Rachel said flatly. You're trying to undermine my authority so you can position yourself for my job. But here's the problem, Laura. You're not good enough. Your division's performance is mediocre. Your client relationships are transactional. Your leadership style is based on fear rather than respect. The board didn't choose you 3 years ago because I was better qualified. That hasn't changed. The room was deadly quiet. Laura's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. How dare you? I dare, because I'm tired of pretending this is about ethics when it's really about your ego. Rachel turned back to the board. So here's my position. I'm not ending my relationship with Ethan. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not hiding it. We've handled it appropriately, changed reporting structures, disclosed to HR, maintained professional boundaries at work. If that's not sufficient for this board, then I'll resign, effective immediately, and I'll take my clients and my strategies with me. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Rachel, that's non-negotiable, Rachel finished. I've given this firm 3 excellent years. I've delivered results beyond anyone's expectations, and I've done it while navigating constant skepticism about my age, my background, my qualifications. I'm done proving myself while you allow people like Laura to weaponize my personal life. Ethan felt his heart hammering. Rachel was burning bridges, risking everything. For them. Richard Hoffman cleared his throat. Ms. Monroe, no one is asking you to resign. Aren't you? Rachel's voice was quiet but fierce. Because it seems like you're asking me to choose between being human and being CEO. Between having a personal life and having this job. And if that's the choice, I choose being human. She sat down, her hand finding Ethan's under the table. The board members looked at each other, uncertain. Finally, Patricia spoke. I think we need to discuss this privately. Ms. Monroe, Mr. Cole, if you could step outside. They walked out together, still holding hands. The conference room door closed behind them with an ominous click. In the hallway, Rachel's composure cracked slightly. I might have just ended my career. You were incredible in there. I was reckless. You were brave. Ethan pulled her into his arms, not caring who saw. Rachel, whatever they decide, you stood up for us, for what's right. I'm so proud of you. She clung to him for a moment, then stepped back, wiping her eyes quickly. What if they accept my resignation? Then we figure out what's next, together. They waited in the hallway for 25 agonizing minutes. Ethan could hear raised voices through the door, arguments, debate, someone pounding the table. Finally, the door opened. Patricia stepped out, her expression unreadable. We'd like you both to come back in. They returned to the conference room. The board members looked tired. Laura looked furious. Patricia cleared her throat. After extensive discussion, the board has reached a decision. Miss Monroe, your position as CEO is secure. We recognize your exceptional performance and value your leadership. However, she paused. We're establishing new guidelines for executive relationships. Any executive involved with another employee must disclose it to HR immediately. Reporting structures must be adjusted to eliminate conflicts of interest. And all such relationships will be subject to annual review to ensure no abuse of power. Rachel nodded slowly. That's fair. As for Mr. Cole, the promotion delay stands, but we're reducing it from 6 months to 3, acknowledging that the delay was precautionary rather than punitive. Relief flooded through Ethan. 3 months. He could handle 3 months. There's one more thing, Patricia continued. Ms. Finch, your conduct during this process has been concerning. Using company resources to investigate colleagues, making unfounded allegations, attempting to manipulate board decisions for personal gain, these behaviors are inconsistent with our values. You're being reassigned to a non-executive position, effective immediately. Laura's face went white. You can't. We can, and we are. You'll report to Marcus Chen in the Asia Division. Consider this your opportunity to rebuild your reputation through actual performance. Laura stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. This is outrageous. You're punishing me for trying to maintain ethical standards? We're holding you accountable for weaponizing those standards for political purposes, Patricia said calmly. The meeting is adjourned. Laura stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The remaining board members filed out more slowly, several of them nodding at Rachel with what looked like respect. When they were alone, Rachel turned to Ethan, her eyes bright with tears and relief and triumph. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. You did it. That was all you. No, it was us. Together. Ethan pulled her close, holding her while she shook with adrenaline and relief. They'd survived. Not just survived. Won. Won on their own terms, with honesty and courage instead of hiding and compromise. The cost had been high. 3 months of delayed promotion, ongoing scrutiny, new policies that would make their relationship subject to annual review. But they were still standing, still together, still fighting for something real. Rachel pulled back, smiling through her tears. We should celebrate. Definitely. What did you have in mind? Dinner. Tonight, you, me, and Mia. My place. I'll cook. You cook? Badly, but with enthusiasm. Ethan laughed, the sound echoing in the empty conference room. That sounds perfect. They left the building hand in hand, walking out into the bright Monday morning with their heads held high. People would still talk. There would still be challenges, but they'd faced the worst and survived. Everything else they could handle together. The dinner at Rachel's apartment that evening felt like stepping into a different world. Ethan had expected something austere and minimalist, matching Rachel's professional persona. All clean lines and neutral colors and expensive art that you weren't supposed to touch. Instead, her home was warm, lived in. The kind of space that told stories if you knew how to read them. Bookshelves crammed with novels and biographies lined one wall, organized in a system that seemed chaotic but was probably meticulously planned. A worn leather couch faced windows overlooking the city. Plants, actual living plants, not the sculptural designer kind, crowded the windowsills. And on the refrigerator held by magnets were photos. Not professional headshots or corporate events, but candid moments. Rachel with people who looked like friends. Rachel hiking somewhere with mountains in the background. Rachel laughing at something off camera, her guard completely down. It was the home of someone who had built a life, not just a career. Mia noticed the plants first. You have a jungle. She ran to the window, carefully touching the leaves of what Ethan thought might be a philodendron. Daddy, we should get plants. We kill every plant we get, remember? That's because you forget to water them. I would remember. Uh-huh. Rachel emerged from the kitchen wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair down and no makeup. She looked younger like this, more relaxed, more herself. I'm glad you're here, she said, and the warmth in her voice made Ethan's chest tighten. Fair warning, though. I wasn't lying about the cooking thing. I can make exactly 3 dishes, and 2 of them involve pasta. What's the third? Scrambled eggs, but I'm very good at them. Mia giggled. Daddy makes good eggs, too. Maybe you can have a contest. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, Ethan said. What are we making tonight? Pasta primavera, which is a fancy way of saying pasta with whatever vegetables I had in the fridge. Rachel led them to the kitchen, which was surprisingly well equipped for someone who claimed not to cook. Mia, I need an assistant. Think you can help me chop vegetables? I'm 5.5. I'm not allowed to use knives. What about a butter knife for the soft stuff? I have mushrooms that need slicing. Mia looked at Ethan for permission. He nodded, and she practically vibrated with excitement. I'll be very careful. Daddy, you have to watch to make sure I do it right. So Ethan stood in Rachel's kitchen, watching his daughter carefully slice mushrooms under Rachel's patient instruction while water boiled for pasta and something that smelled like garlic and olive oil sizzled in a pan. It felt domestic in a way that should have been terrifying, too fast, too much, too soon after everything they'd just survived. But instead it felt right. Rachel caught his eye across the counter and smiled, and Ethan knew she felt it too. This ease, this belonging. They ate at Rachel's small dining table, Mia chattering about school and her classroom fish, and how Sophie had apologized for being mean, and they were friends again. Rachel listened with complete attention, asking questions and laughing at Mia's dramatic retellings. Watching them together, Ethan felt something shift in his chest. For 2 years, it had been just him and Mia against the world. He told himself that was enough, that they didn't need anyone else, that opening their lives to someone new was too risky. But seeing Mia's face light up when Rachel praised her mushroom-cutting skills, seeing Rachel's genuine delight in his daughter's company, he realized that maybe enough and complete were different things. After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Rachel her favorite book. It's about a mouse who wants to be a princess, she explained seriously, pulling the worn paperback from Ethan's bag. But she learns that being a mouse is good too. Daddy reads it to me every night. It sounds wonderful. Will you read it to me? Mia's eyes went wide. Really? You want me to read to you? Absolutely. I love being read to. So they settled on Rachel's couch, Mia between them, the book open on her lap, and she read haltingly through the story, sounding out the harder words with Ethan's quiet help. Rachel listened like it was the most important thing in the world. By the time Mia finished, her eyes were drooping. The combination of excitement and a full belly had caught up with her. I think someone's ready for bed, Ethan said gently. No, I'm not tired, Mia protested through a yawn. I want to stay and talk to Rachel more. How about this? Rachel suggested. You can rest on the couch for a little bit, and your dad and I will be right here. Deal? Deal. But you have to keep talking, so I know you're still here. We will, Rachel promised. Mia curled up against the arm of the couch, her head on a throw pillow, and within minutes her breathing had evened out into sleep. Ethan carefully draped his jacket over her as a makeshift blanket, then sat back down next to Rachel. They were quiet for a moment, both watching Mia sleep. She's wonderful, Rachel said softly. You've done an incredible job with her. I've done my best. Some days that feels like enough. Other days, he trailed off. Other days? Other days I wonder if my best is good enough. If I'm giving her everything she needs. If she's missing out on things because it's just me. Rachel turned to face him fully. Ethan, that little girl is happy, confident, kind, and brave. She knows she's loved. She feels secure enough to push boundaries and ask hard questions. You've given her everything that matters. She doesn't have a mother. No, and that's a loss. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But she has you, and you've been enough, more than enough, for 2 years. Don't diminish that by focusing on what you can't give her. Ethan's throat tightened. Sometimes I'm terrified I'm going to mess her up, make the wrong choice, fail her when she needs me most. That's called being a parent. I'm pretty sure everyone feels that way. Rachel's hand found his. But here's what I see. A man who puts his daughter first, always. Who shows up for her even when it costs him professionally. Who teaches her by example what it looks like to be honest and brave and kind. She's going to be okay, Ethan. Better than okay. He wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust that he was enough. That love and presence could compensate for all the things he couldn't provide. Thank you, he said quietly. For today. For fighting for us. For this. He gestured around the apartment, at Mia sleeping peacefully, at the evening they'd shared, for making space in your life for both of us. Rachel leaned closer. I want to be clear about something. I'm not trying to replace Claire. I'm not trying to be Mia's mother. That's not my place, and I would never presume. I know, but I care about her, a lot, and I care about you. And if we're going to do this, really do this, then I need you to know that I'm all in. Not just with you, but with both of you. As a package. As a family. The word hung in the air between them. Family. That's a big word, Ethan managed. I know. Too fast? Maybe. Probably. He squeezed her hand. But also maybe not. These past few weeks, watching how you are with Mia, seeing how hard you fought to protect what we're building. Rachel, I haven't felt like we were a family since Claire died. It's just been me and Mia in survival mode. But tonight, sitting here with you, watching you teach her to cook and listening to her read, it felt different. It felt like we could actually build something whole. Rachel's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I want that. I want to be part of building that with you. Even knowing how hard it's going to be, the scrutiny at work, the annual reviews the board mentioned, all the people who are going to judge us, especially knowing that. Because if we can survive what we've already been through and still be sitting here wanting this, then we can survive whatever comes next. Ethan pulled her closer, careful not to disturb Mia. I'm falling in love with you, he said again, the words coming easier now. Actually, I think I'm already there, fully in love with you. Rachel's breath caught. Yeah? Yeah. It's terrifying and complicated and probably still a little bit professionally messy, but it's true. I'm fully in love with you too, she whispered. Have been for weeks. Maybe since that first night at the holiday party when you stopped me from making a terrible decision and then said that impossible thing about making the first move if I were sober. That was a terrible line. It was perfect. It was honest. She kissed him, soft and slow and full of promise. That's what I love about you. You're honest even when it's hard, even when it costs you. They sat together on the couch, Mia sleeping beside them, and talked in quiet voices about everything and nothing. Rachel told him about growing up in foster care, about the instability and the feeling of never quite belonging anywhere, about how building her career had been a way to create the security she'd never had as a child. Ethan told her about Claire, about the good parts of their marriage that he sometimes forgot when grief got too heavy, about how they'd been young and broke and terrified when Mia was born, but also wildly happy, about the guilt he still carried for not being able to save Claire, even though he knew logically there was nothing he could have done. It was the kind of conversation you had in the dark, when defenses were down and truth came easier, the kind that built foundations. Around 9 o'clock, Mia stirred and woke up disoriented. Daddy, where are we? Rachel's apartment, remember? You fell asleep on her couch. Mia sat up, rubbing her eyes. Did I sleep a long time? About an hour. Oh. She looked around, getting her bearings. Can we come back? I like it here. Rachel smiled. Anytime you want. But right now I think your dad probably needs to get you home and into your real bed. Okay, but can we have dinner here again? Absolutely. The drive home was quiet, Mia dozing in the back seat while Ethan navigated the evening traffic. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Thank you for tonight. For trusting me with Mia. For letting me in. Thank you for making space for us. Both of us. Always. Sweet dreams. You too. After getting Mia into her actual bed, teeth brushed, pajamas on, another reading of the Mouse Princess book, Ethan sat in his living room and let himself feel the weight of the day. The board meeting. Rachel's ultimatum. Laura's demotion. The dinner at Rachel's apartment that had felt like a glimpse of a possible future. It was exhausting and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. His phone rang. His mother. Ethan hadn't talked to his parents much since Claire died. They'd tried to be supportive, but they lived across the country and didn't really understand single parenthood or grief or any of it. The distance between them had grown naturally, painfully, until their relationship consisted mostly of birthday cards and occasional awkward phone calls. Hi, Mom. Ethan, honey, how are you? How's my grandbaby? We're good. Mia's great, growing like a weed. I miss her so much. You should bring her to visit. I know. It's just hard with work and school and… Speaking of work, his mother's tone shifted and Ethan's stomach sank. I got a call from Barbara Chen. You remember her? She works in accounting at your firm. Sophie's mother. Of course. She told me some concerning things about what's been happening there. Something about you and your boss? Ethan, please tell me you're not… Mom, I don't really want to talk about this right now. Well, I want to talk about it, Barbara said there's been an investigation, that you're involved with your supervisor, that it's caused all sorts of problems at work. His mother's voice rose with worry and disapproval. Ethan, after everything you've been through, after losing Claire, you can't afford to lose this job too. What were you thinking? I was thinking that I deserve to be happy, that Mia deserves to see her father build a life, not just survive. But with your boss, honey, that's so inappropriate. The power dynamic alone has been addressed. We changed reporting structures. We've been completely transparent with HR and the board. We've done everything right. Except you're still seeing her. Yes, because I care about her. Because she's good for me and good for Mia. Because for the first time in 2 years, I feel like I'm living again instead of just getting through each day. His mother was quiet for a moment. I'm worried about you, about Mia. This woman, Rachel, is it? She's very ambitious, very career-focused. What happens when her career takes priority, when you're expected to accommodate her schedule and her priorities? You've already sacrificed so much. You shouldn't have to… Mom, stop. Ethan's voice was firm. Rachel isn't asking me to sacrifice anything. If anything, she's been the one making sacrifices. She almost lost her job fighting for our relationship. She's made space in her life for Mia. She understands that my daughter comes first, always. But for how long? Career women, Ethan, they're not built for family life the way Claire was? Bitterness crept into his voice. Mom, Claire was finishing her doctorate when she got pregnant. She had career ambitions too. She just didn't get the chance to pursue them. That's different. It's really not. You're making assumptions about Rachel based on old stereotypes, not on who she actually is. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Or Mia. We won't. And if we do, we'll handle it. Together. As a family. Ethan paused. I appreciate your concern, Mom. I really do. But I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. I'm 34 years old. I've been through hell and come out the other side. I can make my own decisions about my personal life. I know you can. She sighed. I worry. That's what mothers do. I understand, but you don't need to worry about this. Rachel is good for us, for me and Mia. I need you to trust that. They talked for a few more minutes, the conversation stiff and awkward. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt drained. He'd known people would judge his relationship with Rachel, but having his own mother voice those doubts hit differently. He texted Rachel. Just had a fun conversation with my mother who heard about us through the office gossip mill. Apparently I'm making terrible life choices. Her response came quickly. I'm sorry. Want to talk about it? Not really. Just wanted you to know that even if my mother thinks I'm being reckless, I'm not second-guessing this. Good. Because neither am I. No matter who disapproves. Thank you. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. She wasn't wrong. Tuesday morning, the entire office knew about the board meeting's outcome. Laura's demotion had spread through the building like wildfire, and with it, a shift in how people treated Ethan and Rachel. Some colleagues were supportive, stopping by Ethan's desk to congratulate him on the promotion being moved up. Others were distant, maintaining professional courtesy, but nothing more. And a few, mostly Laura's allies, were openly hostile. But Rachel had been right about one thing. The work spoke for itself. By midweek, Ethan was deep in a new project, proving again that his value to the firm had nothing to do with his relationship with the CEO and everything to do with his competence. Marcus called him into his office Thursday afternoon. How are you holding up? Marcus asked. I know this week has been intense. I'm managing. The whispers are annoying, but I expected them. They'll die down. Something else will become the hot gossip, and people will move on. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I wanted to talk to you about your career trajectory. Now that the promotion delay has been reduced to 3 months, we should start planning for what comes after. After you move into the strategic project manager role. You're talented, Ethan. Too talented to stay at that level for long. I want to start grooming you for director-level responsibilities. Ethan blinked. I wasn't expecting that. Why not? You just proved you can handle a $30 million account. You can coordinate international teams. You can solve complex problems under pressure. Those are director-level skills. Marcus smiled. Rachel was right about you. You were underutilizing yourself as an executive assistant. Now we're going to fix that." Hope bloomed in Ethan's chest. What would that look like? More complex projects, team leadership, eventually your own department. But it means longer hours sometimes, more travel, more responsibility. Marcus's expression grew serious. "I know you have Mia to consider. I want to make sure we build a path that works for your whole life, not just your career." "I appreciate that." "Good. Let's set up some time next week to map it out properly." After the meeting, Ethan texted Rachel. "Marcus just talked to me about director-level trajectory. Apparently you recommended me for fast-track development? I might have mentioned to him that you're criminally underutilized." "Why? Are you upset?" "No. Grateful. But also nervous about how to balance it with Mia. We'll figure it out. Together. Remember? Together." That weekend, they took Mia to the botanical gardens. It was Rachel's idea, a way to spend time together that felt special but low-key. They wandered through the greenhouse exhibits, Mia running ahead to examine exotic flowers, and Rachel explaining the Latin names for various plants with the same precision she used in board meetings. "How do you know all this?" Ethan asked, watching her identify a rare orchid species for an impressed Mia. "I had a foster mother who loved plants. She's the one who taught me to garden." Rachel's expression softened with memory. "Mrs. Henderson. I lived with her for 2 years when I was 12 and 13. Best placement I ever had." "What happened?" "She got sick. Cancer. Had to give up fostering." Rachel touched the orchid's petals gently. "I went to 3 more homes after that, but none of them felt like hers did. She's the one who taught me that you could build something beautiful even when everything around you was unstable. You just had to be patient and consistent and willing to do the work." Mia had wandered ahead to look at a pond full of koi fish, giving them a moment of relative privacy. "Do you still talk to her?" Ethan asked. "She died about 5 years ago. I was in business school, working 2 jobs, couldn't afford to fly out for the funeral." Rachel's voice was tight. "I regret that, not being there. I'm sure she understood. Maybe. But I should have found a way. She was..." Rachel stopped, composing herself. "She was the only person who ever made me feel like I could be more than what I came from, like my past didn't have to define my future." Ethan pulled her into a one-armed hug, careful of their public setting. "She'd be proud of you, of everything you've built." "I hope so." They spent another hour at the gardens, watching Mia delight in the butterfly pavilion and the carnivorous plant exhibit. It was peaceful in a way Ethan hadn't experienced in years, just existing together, no crisis to manage, no battles to fight, just a Saturday afternoon with people he loved. The realization struck him as they were leaving. People he loved. Plural. He was building a family again. That evening, after dropping Mia at home with Mrs. Chen, Ethan met Rachel for coffee at a quiet place across town. They sat in a corner booth, hands wrapped around warm mugs, and talked about the future for the first time without fear coloring every word. "I've been thinking," Rachel said, "about what comes next. For us." "What have you been thinking?" "That we should stop pretending this is casual or tentative. We're in this. Fully. We love each other. We're building something real with Mia. Maybe it's time to make it official." Ethan's heart rate picked up. "Official how?" "Meet my friends, meet what's left of my family. I have a cousin I'm actually close with. Let me meet your parents. Start integrating our lives properly instead of keeping everything in separate boxes." "My mother already doesn't approve of us." "Then let me show her I'm not the career-obsessed villain she's imagining. Let me prove that I can be good for both of you." Rachel's voice was earnest. "Ethan, I don't want to be your secret or your someday. I want to be your partner, fully, in every part of your life." "What about work? The annual reviews the board mentioned?" "We handle them. We keep being professional at the office. We keep delivering results. We show them that our relationship makes us stronger, not weaker." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I am saying I'm ready to fight for this. For us. For the long term." Ethan thought about Mia's question. Will she be my new mommy? About his own mother's disapproval. About the 3 months until his promotion and the scrutiny that would follow. But he also thought about dinner at Rachel's apartment. about watching her teach Mia to cook, about the botanical gardens and the way she'd looked at him when talking about Mrs. Henderson and building beautiful things from unstable foundations. "Okay," he said. "Let's do it. Let's stop being tentative and start being intentional about building a life together." Rachel's smile was brilliant. "Yeah?" "Yeah. But we do it smart. We make sure Mia's comfortable with every step, we set boundaries to protect our work, and we give my mother time to come around." "Deal. When do we start?" "How about next weekend? You could come to dinner at my place. Meet my neighbor Mrs. Chen, who's basically been our family since Claire died. Let Mia see you in our space, not just neutral territory." "I'd love that." They talked for another hour, making plans and dreaming about futures that felt both terrifying and possible. When they finally left the coffee shop, it was dark outside, the city glittering with lights. Rachel kissed him in the parking lot, not caring who might see. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love both of you, and I'm going to spend every day proving that you made the right choice, trusting me with your hearts." "I love you too," Ethan replied. "And Rachel? You don't have to prove anything. You already show us every day." He drove home with hope blooming warm in his chest. When he got back to the apartment, Mrs. Chen was reading while Mia slept. "How was your evening?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Good, really good." Ethan paid her and walked her to the door. "Mrs. Chen, I wanted to ask you something. Next Saturday, Rachel's coming for dinner. I'd like you to meet her properly. If you're free?" Mrs. Chen's smile widened. "I would be honored. It's about time you let someone in, Ethan. You've been alone too long." "I haven't been alone. I've had you and Mia." "You know what I mean. You've been lonely. I see it. But lately?" She patted his arm. "Lately you look happier, lighter, like you're living again instead of just surviving. If this Rachel makes you feel that way, then I want to meet her." After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan checked on Mia one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, covers kicked off, her stuffed elephant clutched close. He adjusted her blankets and sat on the edge of her bed, watching her breathe. "We're going to be okay, baby girl," he whispered. "Better than okay. We're going to build something good. Something whole. I promise." Mia stirred slightly but didn't wake. Ethan kissed her forehead and left her room, pulling the door almost closed but leaving it open enough to hear her if she needed him. In his own room, he found himself looking at the photo on his nightstand. Claire, smiling at the camera, taken a month before Mia was born. For 2 years, that photo had been both comfort and accusation, a reminder of what he'd lost, of promises he'd made that he couldn't keep. But tonight, looking at Claire's smile, he felt something different. Permission, maybe. Or peace. He picked up the photo, holding it gently. "I'm moving forward," he said to the image. "I'm letting someone new into our lives, into Mia's life. I hope, you'd be okay with that. Rachel's good for us. She makes me want to be better. She makes Mia laugh. And I love her. Not the same way I loved you, but real, just as real." He set the photo back down, but this time he didn't feel the usual weight of grief, just a quiet gratitude for what had been and hope for what might be. His phone buzzed. "Rachel, I can't stop smiling. Is that normal for someone my age? Completely normal. I'm doing the same thing. What are we going to do for a whole week until Saturday?" "Work. Parent, try not to make the office gossips' heads explode by being too obviously happy. That last one might be impossible. I'm terrible at hiding how I feel about you." "Good. I don't want you to hide it." "Then I won't." "Sweet dreams, Ethan." "Sweet dreams, Rachel." He fell asleep that night with his phone on the pillow beside him, feeling like he'd finally exhaled after holding his breath for 2 years. The week passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Ethan coordinated a new project while counting down to Saturday. Rachel texted him throughout each day, sometimes about work, sometimes about nothing, sometimes just to say she was thinking about him. It was the kind of constant, easy communication that came when two people were building towards something permanent. Wednesday, Mia came home from school with a drawing. "I made this for Rachel," she announced, showing Ethan a crayon picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's you, that's me, and that's Rachel, and that's our house. She pointed to a lopsided rectangle with windows. Ethan's throat tightened. That's beautiful, baby girl. Can I give it to her on Saturday? She would love that. Good, because I drew it really careful, see? I even gave her the right color hair. Friday afternoon, Rachel called him in a panic. I don't know what to bring to dinner. Wine? Flowers? Is that too formal? Should I bring something for Mia? What if Mrs. Chen doesn't like me? What if… Rachel, Ethan interrupted gently. Breathe. You don't need to bring anything except yourself. That feels wrong. I should bring something. Okay, bring dessert, nothing fancy, maybe cookies or brownies from that bakery near your apartment that you mentioned. Mia loves sweets. Cookies. I can do cookies. That's manageable. And Rachel? Yeah? Mrs. Chen is going to love you. Mia already does. You don't have to try so hard. I want to make a good impression. You will, just by being yourself. Saturday arrived clear and mild, perfect weather for the small disaster Ethan was planning. He spent the morning cleaning the apartment with Mia's enthusiastic but not particularly helpful assistance. She insisted on arranging her stuffed animals just right on the couch so Rachel would feel welcome, and setting the table with their nicest plates, which weren't very nice, but they were what they had. By 4 o'clock, the apartment looked as good as it was going to get. Dinner was simmering on the stove, the spaghetti Mia had mentioned with sauce Ethan had been perfecting for years. Nothing fancy, but honest, real. Mrs. Chen arrived at 4:30, bearing a covered dish. Pot stickers, she explained, in case your dinner needs backup. It doesn't, but thank you. She settled into the armchair with comfortable familiarity, having been in this apartment hundreds of times over the past 2 years. So tell me about this Rachel. What should I know? She's brilliant, driven, CEO of the firm, youngest person to ever hold that position. And she loves you. Yes. And Mia likes her. Loves her, actually. Has been talking about her nonstop all week. Mrs. Chen smiled. Then I'm sure I'll like her too. Rachel arrived at exactly 5 o'clock, which didn't surprise Ethan at all. She was nothing if not punctual. She stood in the hallway holding a white bakery box and looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her, even during the board meetings. Hi, she said. I brought cookies, and I'm terrified. Ethan kissed her briefly. Don't be. Come in. Mia launched herself at Rachel the moment she entered, wrapping her arms around Rachel's waist. You came! I made you something! She dragged Rachel to the couch to present her drawing. Rachel examined it with complete seriousness. This is incredible, Mia. Can I keep it? Yes, I made it special for you. That's us. We're a family. Rachel's eyes met Ethan's over Mia's head, bright with emotion. We are. Thank you for including me. Mrs. Chen approached, extending her hand. You must be Rachel. I'm Margaret Chen, Ethan's neighbor and Mia's unofficial grandmother. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Chen. Ethan has told me how much you've helped them. Someone had to. This one tried to handle everything alone after Claire died. Mrs. Chen gestured at Ethan. Stubborn man, but he's learning to accept help. I'm getting better at it, Ethan said mildly. They settled into dinner easily, conversation flowing naturally. Rachel helped Mia set out napkins. Mrs. Chen told embarrassing stories about Ethan's first attempts at single parenting. Mia performed an impromptu song she'd learned at school. It was chaotic and warm and exactly what Ethan had hoped for. Over spaghetti, Mrs. Chen asked Rachel about her work. It must be challenging, she said, being so young and leading such a large firm. It has its moments, Rachel admitted, especially recently, but I'm fortunate to work with talented people who help me succeed. Her eyes found Ethan's, some of whom I couldn't do without. And you're serious about my boy here? About Mia? Rachel didn't hesitate. Completely serious. I love them both. And I know what I'm taking on, the responsibility, the scrutiny, the challenges. I'm ready for all of it. Mrs. Chen studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good, because they deserve someone who shows up, who stays, who fights for them. I will, Rachel promised, every day. After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Rachel her room and all her favorite things. Ethan cleaned up with Mrs. Chen, listening to Mia's excited chatter drifting from down the hall. She's good for you, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Both of you. I can see it. You approve? I do. More importantly, Mia approves. That child has good instincts about people. Mrs. Chen dried a plate thoughtfully. You were a good husband to Claire, Ethan. You've been a wonderful father to Mia, but you've been carrying so much alone for so long. It's good to see you sharing the load, building something new. I'm scared I'll mess it up. Of course you are. That's what makes you careful. What makes you a good father. She patted his arm. But don't be so careful that you miss out on happiness. You've earned this. Later, after Mrs. Chen had left and Mia was in bed, Ethan and Rachel sat on his worn couch with the city sounds drifting through the open window. Rachel had her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, and everything felt settled in a way it hadn't in years. Thank you for tonight, Rachel said, for letting me into your home, your real life. Thank you for showing up, for being patient with all my complicated pieces. Your pieces aren't complicated. They're just real, human. She tilted her head to look at him. I meant what I said to Mrs. Chen. I'm all in. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, Ethan agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being. When Rachel finally left around 10, Ethan walked her to her car and kissed her goodnight with the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. They weren't just dating anymore. They weren't just trying things out. They were building a family. And for the first time since Claire died, Ethan believed in his ability to build something that would last. The 3 months until Ethan's promotion passed faster than he expected, settling into a rhythm that felt both new and natural. Work became easier as the office gossip finally died down, replaced by newer scandals and dramas that had nothing to do with him or Rachel. Marcus proved to be an excellent supervisor, challenging Ethan with increasingly complex projects while respecting his boundaries around family time. And Rachel, true to her word, maintained perfect professionalism at the office while building a life with them outside of it. She came to dinner every Wednesday, a standing date that Mia marked on her calendar with happy faces. She learned to make grilled cheese the way Mia liked it, crispy but not burned with the crusts cut off. She attended Mia's school concert, sitting between Ethan and Mrs. Chen while Mia sang off-key with complete confidence. She kept children's books at her apartment for the weekends when Mia stayed over, and learned which stuffed animals were essential for bedtime and which were just decorative. Slowly, carefully, she became part of their family. It wasn't always smooth. There were moments of friction, of adjustment, of figuring out how 3 people with different histories and needs could build something cohesive. Rachel struggled with the chaos of parenting a 5-year-old, with the way plans had to be flexible because children got sick or tired or simply changed their minds. Ethan struggled with letting someone else share the parenting decisions he'd been making alone for 2 years. And Mia, despite loving Rachel, sometimes had moments of confusion about what Rachel's role actually was. Is Rachel my mom now? She asked one night in early December, 3 weeks before Ethan's promotion was set to become official. They were in her room, Ethan tucking her in after a long day. Rachel had left an hour earlier and Mia had been unusually quiet since. No, baby girl, Rachel isn't your mom. Your mom is Claire and she always will be. Nobody can replace her. But Rachel does mom things. She makes me dinner and reads to me and helps me with my homework. That's true. Rachel does those things because she loves you and wants to take care of you. But that doesn't make her your mom. It makes her... Ethan paused, searching for the right words. It makes her someone who loves you very much and wants to be part of our family. Like a bonus person? Despite the weight of the conversation, Ethan smiled. Yeah, like a bonus person. I like having a bonus person, but I miss my real mom sometimes. I know you do. Me too. Mia was quiet for a moment, her small face serious. Daddy, do you think Mommy would like Rachel? The question hit Ethan square in the chest. He'd been asking himself the same thing for months, never quite sure of the answer. I think, he said slowly, your mom would like anyone who made us happy and took good care of us. And Rachel does both of those things. Okay, that's good. Mia yawned, her questions apparently satisfied. Can Rachel come to my birthday party? Of course. When did you want to have it? On my actual birthday. And I want a princess cake. And I want to invite Sophie and Emma and Marcus from school. And Mrs. Chen and Rachel. She paused. Can we have it at Rachel's apartment? Her place is bigger. I don't know if Rachel... I'll ask her tomorrow. She'll say yes. She always says yes when I ask for stuff. Ethan laughed. She does spoil you a bit. That's what bonus people are for. The next morning, true to her word, Mia called Rachel before school. Can I have my birthday party at your apartment? Daddy says our place is too small and your place has more room and also better plants. Ethan grabbed the phone. I did not say that. Mia, you can't just invite yourself. But Rachel was already laughing on the other end. Of course you can have your party at my place. When is it? December 20th. I'll be 6. That's basically an adult. Basically. What kind of party are you thinking? Mia launched into an elaborate description involving princesses, a specific type of cake, and at least 1 million decorations. Ethan listened to Rachel respond with complete seriousness, taking notes and asking clarifying questions like she was planning a corporate event rather than a 6-year-old's birthday party. When Mia finally handed the phone back, breathless with excitement, Rachel said, I hope that was actually okay. I know she put me on the spot. It's more than okay, but you don't have to do all this. We could keep it simple. I want to. Ethan, I've never gotten to plan a kid's birthday party before. Let me go overboard, please. You're going to spoil her. That's the plan. 2 weeks later, Ethan's promotion became official. Marcus called him into his office the Monday before Christmas with a new contract and a smile. Congratulations, Strategic Project Manager Cole. You've earned this 10 times over. The title came with a significant raise, a small team of 3 people reporting to him, and an office, not a big one, but his own space with a door and a window. It felt surreal standing in that office on his first official day, looking at the nameplate that read Ethan Cole, Strategic Project Manager. 3 years ago, he'd been unemployed and drowning in grief. 2 years ago, he'd been barely holding it together as a single father working whatever job would have him. 6 months ago, he'd been an executive assistant trying to rebuild his career while falling for his boss. Now he was here. Not despite the chaos, but because of it. Because he'd been brave enough to take risks, honest enough to face consequences, and strong enough to keep fighting for what mattered. His phone buzzed. Rachel. I'm so proud of you. Want to celebrate tonight? I'll cook. Well, I'll order in and pretend I cooked. Can't. Mia has a school thing. Tomorrow? Tomorrow works. Your place or mine? Yours. Mia wants to start planning party decorations. Perfect. I love you. Love you too. He set his phone down and looked around his new office, feeling the weight of possibilities settle over him. This was just the beginning. Marcus had already talked to him about the director-level track, about the projects that would come his way, about the career he could build if he wanted it. And for the first time in years, he did want it. Not at the expense of Mia, never that, but alongside his life as a father, as a partner, as a person who deserved professional fulfillment as much as personal happiness. His desk phone rang. Teresa, Rachel's assistant. Mr. Cole? Miss Monroe asked me to send you the Q1 strategy documents for review. Should I email them or bring them to your office? His office. He'd probably never get tired of hearing that. Email is fine. Thanks, Teresa. Congratulations on the promotion, by the way. Well deserved. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and introductions and learning the rhythms of his new role. By the time 5:30 rolled around, his hard stop for Mia pickup, Ethan was exhausted but satisfied. He drove to Mia's school, where she bounded out with a paper snowflake she'd made in art class. Daddy, you're a manager now. Does that mean you're important? I was always important. Now I just have a fancier title. And your own office. Can I see it? This weekend, maybe, if you're very good. She chattered all the way home about her day, about the snowflake, about how Sophie's mom was having her baby soon, and wasn't that exciting? Ethan listened with half his attention, the other half stuck on something Teresa had said. Well deserved. For so long, he'd felt like he was constantly proving himself, constantly one mistake away from losing everything. But maybe, finally, he'd proven enough. Maybe he could just exist now, doing good work and building a good life, without the constant anxiety that it could all disappear. That evening, after Mia was in bed, he called his mother. She answered on the 3rd ring. Ethan, is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted to let you know I got the promotion. It's official as of today. Oh, honey, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Mom. There was a pause. Then carefully, how are things with Rachel? Good, really good, actually. She's hosting Mia's birthday party next week. At her apartment? Yeah, Mia asked, and Rachel said yes. She's been great with Mia, patient and kind and really present. Another pause. I owe you an apology. Ethan blinked. What? I judged her without knowing her. I made assumptions based on gossip and my own fears about you getting hurt again. That wasn't fair. His mother's voice was thick with emotion. If she makes you happy, if she's good to Mia, then I should support that. I'm sorry I didn't from the beginning. Mom, I'd like to meet her, properly. Maybe after the holidays, when things settle down, you could all come visit, or we could come there? Ethan felt something tight in his chest loosen. I'd like that. Mia would too. She asks about you and Dad sometimes. We miss her terribly. We miss you. I know. I'm sorry we haven't been better about visiting. You've been surviving, building a new life. I understand that better now. She paused. Bring Rachel when you come. Let us get to know her. Let us see what you see in her. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the dark of his living room and felt the last piece of resistance fall away. His mother's approval shouldn't have mattered so much. He was an adult, capable of making his own choices. But having her support, felt like permission he hadn't known he needed. He texted Rachel. My mother wants to meet you, properly, after the holidays. Is that good or terrifying? Both. But mostly good. She apologized for judging you without knowing you. Wow, what changed? I think she finally heard how happy you make us, how present you are in Mia's life, how serious this is. It is serious, very serious. I know. I'm counting on it. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. Mia's birthday party was controlled chaos in the best possible way. Rachel had transformed her apartment into a princess wonderland, complete with streamers, balloons, and decorations that must have cost a small fortune. She'd ordered the exact cake Mia wanted, a 3-tier princess castle with purple frosting and edible glitter. And she'd planned activities that kept 6 hyperactive 6-year-olds entertained for 3 hours without anyone getting hurt or breaking anything valuable. Ethan watched from the kitchen while Rachel led the kids through a treasure hunt she'd designed, complete with clues and a treasure chest full of party favors. She was patient when Sophie got frustrated with a difficult clue, encouraging when Marcus was too shy to participate, and firm but kind when Emma tried to cheat by looking at Rachel's answer sheet. Mrs. Chen stood beside him, sipping punch and smiling. That woman is a natural, she observed. Look at her with those children. I know. You're going to marry her. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked at Mrs. Chen, who was watching him with knowing eyes. I haven't even thought that far ahead, he lied. Yes, you have. I can see it on your face every time you look at her. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. It's okay to be happy, Ethan. To build a new future. Claire would want that for you. How do you know? Because she loved you. And people who truly love want happiness for those they leave behind, not eternal mourning. Before Ethan could respond, Mia came running over, breathless and grinning. Daddy, we found all the treasures. Rachel made it like a real adventure. I saw. Did you thank her? Not yet. I will. She ran back to Rachel and threw her arms around her waist. Thank you for the best party ever. You're the best bonus person in the whole world. Rachel hugged her back, her face soft with emotion. You're welcome, birthday girl. I'm glad you had fun. After the other children were picked up by their parents, after the decorations were mostly cleaned up and the leftover cake was safely stored, Mia fell asleep on Rachel's couch, with frosting still on her face. Mrs. Chen had left an hour earlier, and it was just the 3 of them in the quiet apartment. Ethan and Rachel sat on the floor, backs against the couch where Mia slept, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and empty punch cups. Thank you, Ethan said quietly, for all of this. You went above and beyond. I wanted to. She deserves to feel special. She does. And you made that happen. Rachel leaned her head on his shoulder. I love her, you know. Not just because she's your daughter. I genuinely love who she is, her curiosity, her kindness, her fearlessness. She's an amazing kid. She is, and she loves you too. I know. She told me today. Said I was her favorite bonus person and she wanted me to stay forever. Ethan's heart squeezed. What did you say? That I wanted to stay forever too, if that was okay with her and her dad. Rachel turned to look at him. Is it okay with you? Rachel, I'm not asking for an engagement ring or anything. I just need to know, is this going somewhere? Are we building towards something permanent, or are we just seeing where things go? Ethan pulled her closer. We're building toward permanent. Absolutely. I'm trying to make sure we're doing it right, for Mia's sake. What would right look like to you? He thought about that. About the past 6 months, about everything they'd survived, about the life they were building together. Maybe we start talking about moving in together. Not immediately, but eventually. Maybe we talk about what it would look like to combine our lives more formally. Maybe... He stopped, surprised by his own certainty. Maybe we start planning a future that includes all three of us. Officially. Rachel's breath caught. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that I can see myself marrying you. Not tomorrow, but someday. When we're both ready, when Mia's ready. I'm saying that when I think about my future, you're in every version of it. I'm in every version of mine too, Rachel whispered. You and Mia both. You're my family now. The one I choose, the one I'm building, the one I want. They sat in the quiet apartment with Mia sleeping nearby, and Ethan felt the last of his fear fall away. This was right. Not because it was easy or simple or without complications, but because it was built on honesty and courage and love that had been tested and proven strong. Let's do it right, he said. Let's take our time, make sure Mia's completely comfortable. Maybe do some family counseling to make sure we're handling all the complicated feelings properly. But let's do it. Let's build this. Together, Rachel said, echoing the word that had become their promise. Together. The holidays passed in a blur of family traditions old and new. Ethan took Mia to visit his parents between Christmas and New Year's, and Rachel came with them. His mother, true to her word, welcomed Rachel warmly. His father, gruff and awkward with emotion, told Ethan privately that he approved. She's good for you, son. Anyone can see that. They returned home to find Rachel's apartment decorated for New Year's Eve, with sparkling cider for Mia and actual champagne for the adults. They watched the ball drop on TV while Mia made it to 10 o'clock before falling asleep, and Ethan and Rachel toasted to the year they'd survived and the one ahead. To new beginnings, Rachel said, raising her glass. To family, Ethan added. To us. They kissed at midnight, and Ethan felt like they were marking something. Not just a new year, but a new chapter in a story that was still being written. January brought cold weather and new challenges. Work ramped up with Q1 planning. Mia started having nightmares again, processing complex feelings about family and change, and what it meant to love someone new without betraying the memory of her mother. And Ethan and Rachel had their first real fight about parenting decisions, about boundaries, about how to handle discipline when they didn't always agree. It was hard, messy, real, but they worked through it. They talked, they compromised, they learned each other's languages, and they came out stronger for having survived the friction. By February, they'd settled into family counseling with a therapist who specialized in blended families and grief. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, helped them navigate the complicated emotions that came with building a new family structure. She helped Mia understand that loving Rachel didn't mean forgetting Claire. She helped Ethan and Rachel set healthy boundaries and expectations, and she gave them tools for handling the inevitable conflicts that came with merging lives. You're doing better than most families I work with, Dr. Chen said in their 8th session. You're communicating, you're being honest. You're putting Mia's needs first while also acknowledging that the adult's relationship matters too. Keep doing what you're doing. In March, Rachel met with a real estate agent. She didn't tell Ethan at first, not wanting to pressure him or assume too much. But one Saturday afternoon, while Mia was at a birthday party and they had rare time alone, she brought it up. I've been looking at houses. Ethan looked up from the report he was reviewing. Houses? 3-bedroom places? With yards, in good school districts. Rachel's voice was careful, tentative. I thought, maybe if things keep going well, if we decide to move forward with combining households, we should get a new place. Something that's ours, not mine or yours. Somewhere Mia could have her own room, but we could also make new memories that aren't tied to either of our old lives. Ethan set down his report. You've been looking at houses. Is that too much? Too fast? I can stop if... No, it's not too much. He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her. It's perfect. Show me what you found. They spent the next hour looking at listings on Rachel's laptop, talking about neighborhoods and school ratings, and whether they wanted a big yard or a small manageable one. It felt surreal and domestic, and exactly right. I want Mia to have input, Ethan said. If we're going to do this, she should feel like it's her choice too. Agreed. We can take her to see places, let her pick her favorite. And we should probably talk about timeline. When would this happen? Rachel was quiet for a moment. What if we aimed for summer? That would give us time to find the right place, for Mia to finish the school year in familiar surroundings, and for us to make the transition during a break when she's not juggling school stress, too. Summer sounds good. Gives us time to do this right. They talked through logistics and finances and all the practical details that came with combining lives. And underneath the practicality, Ethan felt hope and certainty building. This was happening. They were really doing this. By April, they'd narrowed it down to 3 houses and brought Mia to see each one. She eliminated the first immediately because it didn't have enough windows. The second was too far from her school. But the third, a craftsman-style house with a big yard and a reading nook in what would be Mia's room, she fell in love with instantly. This is the one, she declared, standing in the empty living room and spinning in circles. I can feel it. This is our house. Rachel looked at Ethan over Mia's head, a question in her eyes. He nodded. They put in an offer that afternoon. The next 8 weeks were a whirlwind of inspections and negotiations and packing and planning. Ethan put his apartment up for rent, not quite ready to sell the place where he and Mia had built their life after Claire, but willing to move forward. Rachel sold her condo quickly, getting well over asking price in the hot market. And in early June, they moved into the house that would become home for all 3 of them. The actual moving day was chaotic. Mrs. Chen showed up with food and organizational skills. Marcus and his wife came to help with the heavy furniture. Even Ethan's parents flew out to be part of it, his mother immediately claiming grandparent privileges to unpack Mia's room. By the end of the day, they were exhausted, surrounded by boxes, eating pizza on the floor of their new living room. Mia sat between Ethan and Rachel, tomato sauce on her face, and said, I like our new house. It feels like it was waiting for us. I think it was, Rachel agreed. That night, after Mia was asleep in her new room, surrounded by boxes but content in her new space, Ethan found Rachel on the back porch, looking out at the yard they'd somehow acquired. You okay? He asked, sitting beside her. Yeah, just processing. 6 months ago, I lived alone in a condo designed for one person with no room for anything messy or complicated. Now I have a house with a yard and a stepdaughter. Bonus daughter, Ethan corrected gently. Bonus daughter, Rachel smiled. And a partner, and a life I never thought I'd have. It's a lot. Good a lot or scary a lot? Both, but mostly good. She leaned against him. Ethan, I need to ask you something. What? Will you marry me? For a moment, the world stopped. Ethan pulled back to look at her face, seeing nervousness and certainty and hope all mixed together. What? I know it's supposed to be the other way around. I know we haven't been together even a year yet, but I also know that I love you, I love Mia, and I want to make this official. I want to be your wife and Mia's, whatever she wants to call me. I want this to be permanent and legal and real. Rachel's voice wavered slightly. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Ethan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Rachel. If it's too fast, I understand. We can wait. But I needed you to know. Yes, he interrupted. Absolutely yes. I'll marry you. Her face transformed with joy and relief. Yeah? Yeah, I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I want Mia to grow up with you as part of our family, officially and permanently. So yes, let's get married. They kissed in the backyard of their new house, surrounded by moving boxes and new beginnings, and Ethan felt like every hard thing they'd survived had led to this moment, this certainty, this joy. When they finally pulled apart, Rachel was crying and laughing at the same time. I don't even have a ring for you. I didn't plan this. It came out. I don't need a ring. I just need you. We should tell Mia, get her blessing. Tomorrow. Let her have one night in the new house before we add more change. But Mia, it turned out, had other plans. The next morning at breakfast, she looked at them seriously and said, Are you two going to get married? Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. What makes you ask that? Mrs. Chen said people who buy houses together usually get married, and you look at each other the way people do in movies before they get married. She took a bite of cereal, completely casual. So are you? Rachel looked at Ethan, who nodded. Yes, Rachel said. We are, if that's okay with you. Mia considered this. Will you be my mom then? I could be, if you want me to be, or I could be something else, your bonus mom, or Rachel, or whatever feels right to you. Can I think about it? Of course. Okay, but yes, you can marry Daddy. I think that's a good idea. She went back to her cereal like she hadn't just casually approved of completely changing their family structure. Ethan and Rachel stared at each other, then burst out laughing. Well, Ethan said, I guess we have Mia's blessing. I guess we do. They got married in September in a small ceremony in their backyard with the people who mattered most. Mrs. Chen stood as Rachel's witness. Marcus stood for Ethan. Mia was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously and declaring afterward that it was even better than my birthday party. Ethan's parents were there, his mother crying happy tears. Rachel's cousin flew in from Chicago, along with a handful of close friends. Even Teresa from the office came, having apparently forgiven them for all the drama they'd caused over the past year. The ceremony was simple and honest, officiated by Dr. Chen, who'd helped them navigate so much of their journey. They wrote their own vows, Rachel promising to show up, to stay, to fight for their family every day. Ethan promising to be brave, to trust, to build a life worthy of the love they'd been given. And Mia, when asked if she had anything to say, simply announced, I'm glad you two finally figured it out. You were being very slow. The guests laughed. Rachel wiped away tears. And Ethan felt his heart so full he thought it might burst. After the ceremony, after the cake was cut and the toasts were made and the guests had gone home, the three of them sat on the back porch in the fading light. Mia was in Rachel's lap, tired but happy. Ethan had his arm around both of them. This was a good day, Mia said sleepily. One of the best. It was, Rachel agreed. Thank you for being part of it. You're welcome. Rachel? Yeah, sweetheart? I think I want to call you Mom, if that's okay. Rachel's arms tightened around her. That would be more than okay. Good, because you do mom things, and you love us, and that's what moms are supposed to do. She yawned. My first mom would have liked you. I think you would have been friends. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. Rachel was openly crying now. I think we would have been too, Rachel managed, and I promise I'll do everything I can to make her proud, to take care of you the way she would have wanted. You already do, Mia said simply. Then she fell asleep, safe in the arms of her family. Ethan and Rachel sat there in the gathering dark, holding their daughter, and felt the weight of everything they'd survived and everything they'd built. It hadn't been easy. It had been messy and complicated and filled with moments where they'd almost given up. But they'd chosen honesty over hiding, courage over fear, love over safety. And they'd built something beautiful, something whole, something that would last. I love you, Ethan whispered to Rachel. I love you too, she whispered back. Both of you, my family. Our family, Ethan corrected. Our family, Rachel agreed, and in the quiet of their backyard, surrounded by the life they'd built together, they sat and watched the stars come out, three people who'd found each other against all odds and chosen, again and again, to fight for what mattered most. Not perfection, not ease, but love and presence and the courage to keep showing up, even when it was hard. especially when it was hard, because that's what family did. They showed up. They stayed. They built something worth keeping, and they did it together.